recorded.
moi-même, peut-être.
I will be activating the
Voilà.
recording myself.
Autre détail
And
technique,
I have
pensez
another
à laisser
technical
votre micro
detail.
coupé quand vous ne parlez
Please
pas. Donc, vous aussi,
turn off
vous
your
coupez si
microphones
jamais
when you're not
il tirait un de
speaking,
votre part.
and
Pour ceux
turn
qui
it
ont
off in
la
case it
possibilité, une
opens. For
connexion
those who have
suffisante,
the
c'est
possibility
plus
to
convivial de
open their
afficher
cameras, it would be
votre
perfect
vidéo
because, of
si vous le
course,
souhaitez.
it's more
Et puis,
casual.
voilà, il y aura une succession de
And
présentations
then we will have a series
pendant
of
les temps d'échange. N'hésitez
presentations.
pas à prendre la
And of
parole.
course,
Vous pouvez
you
aussi poser des
can
questions dans le chat,
speak and
mais
ask questions
n'hésitez
in
pas à
the chat
privilégier les
box.
échanges oraux
But of
également.
course, we can,
Euh,
ask questions
donc, je
orally
vais
during the
partager
interchange.
mon
Now,
support.
allow me to share my
Voilà. Est-ce que
presentation.
tout le monde voit bien?
Can you all see it?
Oui.
Très bien. Très
Yes.
bien.
Great.
OK. Donc, la rencontre du réseau Liban qu'on
So our
organise annuellement, qui est
meeting that
habituellement
is
destinée
generally
spécifiquement
organized
au
and
secteur de la
that
coopération
is
décentralisée non
mainly
gouvernementale français,
targeting the
qui interviennent sur le
French
secteur de l'eau, l'assainissement au
NGOs
Liban.
that
Donc là, dans
work
le
on
contexte
water
actuel,
in Lebanon,
on
and
a
now
estimé
in this
intéressant et sûrement utile
current
de renforcer la mise en lien
context, we
avec
thought
les
that it
acteurs
would be
locaux
interesting to
impliqués sur
link
le secteur de l'eau et
ourselves with the
l'assainissement au
local
Liban.
actors that were, excuse
Donc,
me,
on va
on
vous
WASH, on the WASH
présenter,
sector in Lebanon.
représenter,
This is why we'll
pour
be
ceux
starting
qui ne connaissent bien
with a
LEWAP,
presentation
le pS-Eau et
of
surtout
ourselves,
le Liban,
introducing
mais au pays
ourselves
plus
with
généralement.
pS-Eau.
Et la plateforme
pS-Eau
LEWAP, qui permet
is
déjà de
known in
faire des
Lebanon, in
plateformes,
addition, of
et
course,
une
to LEWAP,
introduction aux
which
enjeux
is
de la mise
the
en lien entre les acteurs de
Lebanese
l'urgence et du
water
développement,
platform, water
qui est le
actor
focus
platform,
aujourd'hui.
in addition to
Et
the
ensuite, pour rentrer
AFT,
dans le vif du
are our
sujet,
focus
en fait,
today. So for me to
on vous
get into the
dressera un
topic in
panorama
itself,
des
let
acteurs
me
et
tell
des
you that
actions
we will be giving
actifs
you
en ce
an
moment
overview of
sur
all
le
the
secteur de
actors
l'eau et
and all the
l'assainissement au
actions
Liban,
that we
en
have with
commençant
regards to WASH
par
in
la
Lebanon. We
coordination du
will be
secteur
starting
WASH,
with
donc
the coordination
qui relie
of the
les
WASH
ONG.
sector that
Ensuite,
links the
le rôle
different
des OSC,
NGO,
organisations de
in
la société
addition, of
civile
course, to
libanaise,
the
puis les
CSOs
municipalités,
in
et enfin
Lebanon,
un état
then the
des lieux des besoins des
municipalities,
quartiers de façon
and
un peu plus
we will be
transversale.
giving a general
Donc, sans
overview
plus
of
tarder, je garde la
the
parole
needs and the
pour la
situation of the
consommer ensuite,
displaced.
pour vous
So
présenter
just
rapidement le pSO, le
to
programme
start,
Solidarité Eau.
we will be
Donc,
presenting the
nombreux d'entre vous le
PSO,
connaissent
so
déjà, mais c'est
Solidarity
pour
Program for
remettre en
Water.
tête
The
à
majority
tous
of you
ces éléments.
know
Donc, le
this
pSO a été créé à l'initiative du
so
ministère
this
des Affaires
is a
étrangères dans les
program
années
that was
80.
established
C'est un réseau
by the Ministry
d'acteurs
of
ouvert à tous. Et nos
the
actions
European
s'inscrivent
Ministry
globalement
for
dans le cadre de l'ODD
Foreign
6,
Affairs,
le
and
développement
it
durable
comes
pour
under
l'accès à l'eau et
the
l'assainissement pour tous. Nos activités sont de
under
l'ordre de
the
l'appui conseil et de
objective
l'animation,
of the development
destiné en particulier aux acteurs de la coopération
number 6.
décentralisée
So
et non
it mainly
gouvernementale en France.
focuses and targets
Hum,
the support
On a également une base de données
in France,
centralisée
namely with
des
regards to
actions,
NGOs.
des
We also
acteurs
have
et
a
de la documentation.
database that
Et à partir de ces éléments
centralizes all the
qui nous
actors
remontent
and all the
par
documents. And based on
nos
these
activités de
elements
conseil
that we
d'animation
have,
et des
based on our
données que l'on
activities
centralise
and our
dans cette base,
data that we
on
have
mène une
in our
activité
database, we can
d'approfondissement
work on
diffusion
this
production de
activity
connaissances.
that is related to the
Et un autre,
diffusion
alors
and
je vais couper le son, un autre élément important de notre
so we
positionnement,
have
c'est
another
notre
element that is
mobilisation
very important, which is
auprès des
the
acteurs de coopération
mobilization. So
décentralisée
we
non
work
gouvernementale,
with
en particulier en lien avec les
different
élus français, et dans les sphères internationales
French
par notre
actors,
participation
in
au
addition
débat
also to the
international.
international level through our participation
Et
to the international
via nos activités
debates.
d'animation et d'appui
Of
conseil,
course,
on
we
s'organise en
also have
particulier sous la
some
forme de différents sous-réseaux, dont les réseaux pays, justement, tels que
sub-networks,
le réseau
namely
Liban.
within the
Et
countries,
également, on
namely
a
in
été à
Lebanon.
l'initiative de la
And we
création des
also
plateformes
were
pays locales
at
dans
the
certains pays, et
initiative
c'est le cas pour le Liban avec
of
l'EWAP.
launching, some
Donc le réseau Liban du pS-Eau est
programs with
destiné aux acteurs
the
français de la
countries
coopération
like
décentralisée
the
non
one that we have
gouvernementale
with LEWAP.
impliqués
Now,
au
at the
Liban dans les secteurs
level
de l'eau et
of Lebanon,
l'assainissement,
we work with the
avec
NGOs that
l'objectif de
on
faciliter les
the
échanges sur des
sanitation. We
problématiques,
want
des
to
enjeux communs, de
facilitate
mettre en
our
lien
different
ces acteurs
interaction
français
to
avec
put in contact the
les acteurs
French
libanais
actors
impliqués dans le
and
secteur de
the
l'eau et
Lebanese
l'assainissement,
actors that work
de
in
partager de
water
l'information sur les
and
challenges de l'assainissement au
sanitation. And
Liban,
also we share some
d'appuyer la
information
valorisation des projets
with
en
regards to
cours
water sector in
et
Lebanon. We
d'accompagner le
support the
montage des
promotion
nouveaux
of the
projets.
ongoing project and we assist in the development of the new
Donc voilà
partnerships.
globalement
Now,
pour
this
le
is in
positionnement et la
general with
présentation des
regards to our
activités du
situation and the
pS-Eau et de
introduction
nos
of
pays en
our
particulier.
projects and our programs
Et
within
donc,
the
de
PSO.
par cette...
Now,
le
based
son,
on
hop,
this
de par cette ce lien avec
Based
l'ensemble
on
des
this
acteurs
link with
français
regards to
impliqués
the
sur ce
different
type de projet au
French
Liban,
actors
on a
that
une
are
vision un petit peu
working with
globale
the
des
Lebanese
projets en cours et un peu
partners, we
horizontale
have
également.
different
Donc
projects
voilà un
that are
panorama.
already being
Il est en
implemented
fait
and
pas
others
tant
that
en
are
termes
in
de
progress. So
nombre
we
de
do not
projets,
have
mais ce sont des
lots of
projets qui
projects,
sont
but in fact,
souvent
these projects
particulièrement
are more or less
particulièrement qualitatifs, avec des
of
partenariats de
quality
longue
with
durée
different
et des actions
partnerships,
significatives.
long-term
On a par exemple le département de
partnerships.
l'eau, des chambres
So,
de
for
métropole,
example, we
qui sont en
have
lien avec Zarta et
the
Pcharé.
Department of
On a la
the
communauté
Oud
urbaine de
that is
Dunkerque
working with the
qui a
Casa
une
of
vision un petit peu
Disarta
plus
and
globale
Cherry. We
d'aménagement du
also have
territoire en lien avec une agence d'urbanisme.
the
On a Hydrolis, Hydrolis, un
Hydrolis,
syndicat français qui est en
that
lien avec la
is
commune
a French
d'Antoura.
syndicate that is
Et
working
on
with
a différentes
Antura. We
coopérations
also
en cours de
different,
montage
we have also
et une
different
association
collaborations that are
Alissar
in
qui
progress. We
intervient
also have
régulièrement
Alisar
à Beyrouth avec
Association
un
that
financement de la
works in
métropole
Beirut
de
with
Toulouse.
the
Je m'attarde
funding
pas
of
là-dessus, mais
the
vous êtes
metropolis
présents
of
pour quelques-uns
Toulouse.
d'entre vous, la plupart d'entre
So
vous.
I
Donc
think that
n'hésitez
the
pas pendant les
majority
échanges à reprendre la
know
parole.
about all these issues, and in
Je
case you
donne
have
la
any
parole
questions,
maintenant
please do not
à
hesitate.
Jasmine
Please let me give the
qui
floor now to Jasmine,
va nous
who
présenter
will be
rapidement
presenting very
la Lebanese
quickly
Water Actor Platform.
the Lebanese Water Actor Platform, LEWAP.
Ok. Bonjour à tous. Merci Mélodie
Good
pour
morning,
l'introduction.
everybody. Thank you,
Je m'appelle
Melody,
Jasmine
for
Kareh,
this
chef de
introduction. I am
coordinatrice de
Jasmine
l'EWAP.
Kareh, and I'm
Comme
coordinator
Mélodie a
of the
déjà
LEWAP.
mentionné,
As
l'EWAP,
Melody already
c'est the
said,
Lebanese
LEWAP
Water
is the
Actors
Lebanese Water
Platform.
Actors Platform.
En tant que LEWAP,
And as
l'EWAP a été une
LEWAP,
initiative créée par pS-Eau
we
en
were
2017.
created by the initiative of
L'idée
pS-Eau in
principale du LEWAP, c'est la même activité,
2007. In
c'est la
fact,
même chose.
our
pS-Eau, c'est de
objective is the
faciliter la
same as
circulation
the PSO,
d'informations et
which is to
d'échanges
facilitate
entre les différents
exchange of
acteurs ou
information and
établissements en Liban.
data amongst the different
Cette
CSOs
coordination, ça se
and
fait
actors
avec
in
les
Lebanon. This
institutions
coordination is
gouvernementales
done
en tant que
through
le
the
ministère de l'Énergie et
governmental
l'eau, les différents
institutions,
établissements de l'eau
the
également aussi avec
ministry
les
and the
municipalités.
different water
Ici, on
establishment,
coordonne entre les
municipalities, etc. We
différentes
also work
ONG
on some
locaux et
coordination with the
internationaux
different
et avec les bailleurs.
NGOs, with
Et en tant
the
récemment, dans
donors
les
as
dernières
well.
années,
And
on
recently,
a
we
participé au
also
développement
started
d'un network
participating to the
ou bien
development
d'un
of a
groupe
network,
d'OSC et
a
d'ONG
network
locaux
amongst the different NGOs and
qui a été créé
CSOs
dans le
at the
cadre du
local level.
projet
This
d'Union
was done
européenne
within the context of the
dans un consortium de
European
différentes
Union
ONG
project
au
with a
Liban.
consortium of different NGOs
Et de
in
même
Lebanon.
aussi, on
As
facilite
well,
la
we work
coordination
on
entre les milieux
facilitating the
académiques et les
coordination
centres de
between
recherche
the
et les différents secteurs locaux.
academics, the research
Donc,
centers, and
l'objectif
the
de la
different other
plateforme, c'est
actors.
le
In
même
fact,
aussi
the
que pour
objective of our
pS-Eau, c'est de
platform is
collecter,
the same
traiter et
as the
diffuser les
PSO,
différentes
which is to
informations
collect
et
and
de
to
renforcer les
process
capacités
and
entre les
diffuse all the
différents acteurs
information
locaux et
regarding this
internationaux.
sector to reinforce the
On
capacities
dispose de
and to
différents
strengthen the
dossiers
capacity of the different local and
qui font partie
international
aussi de
actors.
la
We
base de
also try
données
to
de
facilitate
pS-Eau.
the exchange
Donc, on a
amongst
ce
the
site
different
pour
actors.
partager
We also
l'information et
have
l'activité du secteur.
some
Sur la
tools,
base de
like
données,
for
vous pouvez
example, the
aussi
site
trouver
for
la
the
fiche de
information
projet, une
sharing
base
and
webinaire,
all
un
the
annuaire des différents acteurs.
novelties with
Et aussi,
regards
on
to this
développe une
specific
newsletter
sector. We also have an
trimestrielle qui
atlas of
donne
the
les
projects. We have
différentes
a document,
informations développées
a
concernant
database
le
and
secteur au Liban.
documents base, and we have also a guide for the different actors of water in Lebanon.
Donc, en temps des activités de l'EWAP, dans les
Regarding the
ateliers
LEWAP
thématiques
activities and the
et
different
visites
thematic
techniques pour le renforcement
workshops
de
and the
cette
technical
activité, des
visits that
capacités,
we
désolé.
are doing in order
Donc,
to
ces différentes visites techniques,
strengthen
cela,
our
ça dépend
the
évidemment des
capacities,
acteurs
first of all,
locaux.
with regard to the
Et,
visits at the technical
on
level. This
développe
is
aussi des
done
ateliers
based
thématiques
on
organisés
the
avec les
request of the
experts sur des
local
sujets demandés.
administration.
Donc,
We have
cela a
some
été
experts
fait non
who
pas seulement dans le dernier
intervene
projet qui fait partie de l'Union
in
européenne, mais
different
même aussi
topics.
avec
This is a
un
project
autre
that is
projet
done
en
with the
date
EU and another
où
project
on a
as
fait une
well,
coopération, un petit
where we
consortium
had
avec
a
l'Université de
cooperation and a
Balaman de
small
Tiwas
cooperation
et
with
on a
both
mobilisé les
University
différents
of
acteurs
Balaman and
locaux
Tiwas. We
à
have mobilized
participer
the
à
different
des
local actors
renforcements de
for them to take
capacité
part to
dans, dans le secteur
capacity
énergie.
building and
Dans le cadre des
namely
activités
for the CSOs
d'évaluation
and
des postes de
NGOs.
travail,
Also, we
comme
animate
j'ai déjà
some
mentionné
work
aussi, la
groups.
partie
As I
milieu
already said, we
académique
have
et centre de
some
recherche.
collaboration
C'est
with
auquel
the
cas le membre
academies and
LEWAP
the research
on
centers.
mobilise
This is what is done through what is called the LEWAP
ces milieux
Tuesdays, where
académiques
we
viennent les
have these
présenter
academies
les
who
différentes
come
recherches
and
qui ont
offer
été
their
développées avec
different research
les
that
autres
were
acteurs
developed,
dans le
and
secteur.
so they introduce them to the different other actors
Et de
in the
même,
water sector
dans le
in
cadre du
Lebanon, as
nouveau
well in the
WASH, dans
same
le WASH Cluster au Liban,
um,
l'IWAP prend en
context of the WASH
coordination du
cluster
groupe
in
thématique
Lebanon,
stabilisation
we have a
qui
thematic group
consiste
that is
surtout
related
des
to
activités qui activités de
different
développement
activities
dans le secteur eau
for
et assainissement
development of water and
entre les différents acteurs
sanitation.
internationaux et
And this
bailleurs.
is done
Le
with the
student
different
chapter,
international
c'est aussi
actors and the
l'un des
donors. We also
activités qu'on
have
propose et pour
a
le
student
développer
chapter.
avec
This is one of the
l'université de
activities
Balaman,
that we have
où
developed with the
s'intensifie
Balaman
à
University.
mobiliser les
It
étudiants et,
aims at
et
mobilizing
à ce
the
qu'ils
students
deviennent plus
for them to be more
à ce qu'ils
involved
interviennent plus dans le secteur eau et
and
assainissement
to
au Liban et pour en
intervene
savoir
in the
plus
wash
comment
sector
structurer
in Lebanon, for
et,
them to know how to structure this
sur les
work
différentes activités et les
and
différents acteurs qui en prennent
to
part.
intervene in the different
Et
activities
comme je
and with the
mentionnais avant,
different
dans le
actors.
cadre du
As I
projet
already said,
MADAD de
within
l'Union
the
européenne, on a développé le
context of the
SPSW
MADAD project of the
avec
EU, we
l'imprimis.
have developed the Lebanese Civil
Et
Society for
cela,
Water
c'est LCSW, ça veut
with
dire
lab
Lebanese
relief.
Civil
So
Society for Water.
LCSW is
Dans
Lebanese
ce
Civil
network,
Society for Water. So
on
within
a
this
groupé les
specific
différentes
network, we have
organisations de la
gathered the
société
different
civile qui
civil
travaillent dans le
society
secteur eau et
organizations
assainissement, mais
working
aussi dans
in
le
the
secteur de l'environnement.
water and sanitation, in
Et
addition, of
finalement,
course,
l'accompagnement de la
environment.
coopération
So also we
décentralisée,
work on
cela se fait
accompanying
avec
the decentralized
le
cooperation.
réseau des
This is
banques
done with
pS-Eau
the
et,
Lebanese
et
network
ça
for
c'est l'une
pS-Eau.
aussi
This is also
des projets
one
que
of the
Mélodie vient de présenter sur
projects
la carte
that Melody has already
avant que je commence la
presented on
présentation.
the map before I took the floor.
De même, dans le cadre de la production
And
des
within
connaissances,
the
où
context
LEWAP
of
offre des newsletters,
knowledge
on
production
développe des
and
fiches review. La dernière a été mise en jour en
action
2023.
tools,
Dans
we
cette fiche
have
review,
developed
vous
what is
pouvez
called
savoir un
the
peu plus sur le
country
contexte général
sheets,
au
where
Liban
we
et quel est le
establish
cadre
the general
institutionnel,
overview of
quelles
Lebanon,
sont
the
les différentes
institutional
lois
frameworks, the
qui gouvernent
different
le secteur,
laws
quels sont les enjeux et
governing the
quels sont les
sector,
différents
what are
acteurs
the
et bailleurs
different
dans une petite note.
risks
De même
and
aussi, récemment, dans les dernières
the
années, ou
different
quelques dernières années, on a
donors.
développé
And recently
différentes fiches de
also we have
synthèse
developed
en
different
relation avec
synthesis
l'assainissement liquide au Liban,
sheets
gestion des
related
boues,
to, first
réutilisation
of
des eaux
all, the
usées,
sanitation, the liquid
épidémie de
sanitation in
choléra
Lebanon, the
et des enjeux
management
d'approvisionnement énergétique au service eau
of
et assainissement. Et dans
uh,
cette production des connaissances, cela se fait directement en
water in
connexion avec
Lebanon,
les
the
différents
reuse
acteurs,
of
donc
used
l'activité
water and the
nationale
cholera
et,
epidemic, in
et
addition
membres
to
de l'OP,
different other
et cela est aussi
stakes
rythmé par les
related to
différents
the
acteurs.
energy
Et
provision. We
ensuite,
are
on
doing
diffuse
this
à
with
tout le monde.
different actors, and then afterwards we
Bon, ça c'est tout
mainstream the
pour l'EWAP.
information. This is everything that is
Je donne maintenant
related
la
to
parole à
LEWAP. Now I
Jasmine.
will be giving the floor to pS-Eau again.
Merci Jasmine. Et pour terminer
Thank you,
cette introduction,
Jasmine. So to
Jérémy va
conclude this
nous
introduction,
concentrer les
Jeremy
enjeux
will
du
be
lien
giving us or
au secteur
talking
de
about the
l'urgence et
different
du
stakes
développement.
related to the emergency of development.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous.
Good morning,
Donc,
all.
je suis Jérémy, donc je
I
suis
am
en charge
Jeremy,
au sein du
and
pS-Eau de suivre un peu la thématique
I work with
des acteurs
pS-Eau. I try to follow up
développement dans
on
le
the
domaine de l'assainissement face aux
different
situations de crise et
themes
d'urgence.
related
Donc,
to
on va
the
juste vous
crisis
présenter
situation
quelques
and
slides pour
emergency.
remettre en
I would like
contexte
to give you some or show some slides that come within the same
Donc voilà, donc
context.
ici,
So
voilà, nous
as
avons
you
la
see,
carte
we have the
donc, du
Lebanese
Liban
map
suivant selon le ministère de l'Europe et des Affaires étrangères français.
according to
Donc,
the Ministry
ce
of
ministère
excuse me,
de
the
mettre en
European
place des cartes
Ministry of
d'identification
Foreign Affairs in
pour
France.
conseiller au
So
non aux
this
voyageurs,
is
que ce soit
a
des simples
map
voyageurs ou des
that
travailleurs
is used
humanitaires ou
to
des acteurs de développement,
assist the
les
different
contextes qui sont
visitors and
pour
those who are
dans ces
working
pays-là. Donc, il y a
on
4 niveaux de
emergency
vigilance, donc
assistance and
jaune,
relief
vert,
for them to
orange et
know where
rouge.
they can
Donc,
go. So
jaune et
you or
vert,
you know, of
généralement, on
course,
peut y aller pour
green
faire
and
des courses.
yellow, where we
En
have the
orange, c'est des zones
possibility of moving. In
déconseillées, sauf raison
orange, it
impérative
is really not
exceptionnelle.
really,
Et
I
rouge,
mean, not
fortement
really recommended to
déconseillé.
go. And
On
of
voit aussi
course,
la
red
crise
is prohibited now
israélo-palestinienne
with the
et l'extension du conflit au
Israelo-Palestinian
Liban, que
crisis
les
and
zones
now the
rouges
extension of this
se
conflict
sont
in
agrandies.
Lebanon.
Avant, ils
You
étaient
can
beaucoup
see that the red
Maintenant, une large
areas are really
majorité
very big.
de
We
la
have the
région
very big
sud-est,
majority
nord
of
et la banlieue sud de Beyrouth qui sont
Lebanon,
en
I
zone
mean, the south,
rouge.
the east, and the north that are
Généralement, les
prohibited
bailleurs de
or
fonds
not at all recommended.
français
And
ne
in
financent pas
general,
de
the
projets, enfin,
French
peuvent financer des
donors
projets en zone
cannot
rouge, mais généralement, donc,
fund
les
the projects
ressortissants
in
français ne
these
sont pas
red
autorisés à aller en zone
areas.
rouge.
Of
Pour
course, maybe they
cela, il faut
can
s'appuyer
fund
sur
them, but
des
the
partenaires
French,
locaux
the
pour
French
piloter les
citizens
activités à
cannot
distance.
go there, and consequently, they
Donc,
have
ça,
to
on peut
work
aller sur
at
l'autre
distance or online
slide.
with local actors there.
Donc, au Liban, il y a
So in
différentes
Lebanon,
typologies
we
d'acteurs
have
qui
different
travaillent. Nous
types
avons à la
of
fois les acteurs
actors. So we
urgentistes
have
et les
first of
acteurs
all
dits
the
CDNG. Donc,
emergency
CDNG, c'est
actors,
pour
and we have
les acteurs de
the
coopération
actors
décentralisée et
working on
non
the decentralized and
gouvernementale.
non-governmental cooperation. So two
Ces acteurs-là
types
ont
of actors.
différents
These
objectifs
actors have
et
different
différentes
objectives
temporalités quand ils
and
travaillent
different
sur ce contexte.
terms
Donc,
for
pour les
their
acteurs
work
urgentistes,
whenever they're
généralement,
working
ils
on
travaillent
in a
sur des
specific
temporalités courtes
context.
pour
Of course,
répondre
whenever we're
donc aux
talking about
besoins urgents
emergency,
et
it is a
vitaux
short
liés à
term
une
in order for
situation
them
de
to answer
crise.
all the urgent needs, the vital
Généralement, ils interviennent quand les
needs.
autorités
They
locales ne peuvent
intervene
pas
whenever the
répondre
local
à
authorities
cette
are not
crise ou à ce
able
choc.
to
Généralement, l'accès à l'eau et à l'assainissement qui
serve the
fonctionne
citizens
est
and to
généralement
answer the
gratuit
crisis.
et ils ont une
Of
grande
course, this is
flexibilité
a response that
financière
is
et ils peuvent changer de
free.
projet, enfin,
So, in
adapter
order to
leur
give
projet
water
suivant
and
le
sanitation
contexte de
freely,
crise.
and of course, this is
Concernant les acteurs de
related to some
CDNG, donc eux,
financial
ils ont une temporalité
flexibility. So,
assez
this is
longue.
different
Ils vont mettre
from
en
the
place des partenariats avec
other
les
actors,
collectivités
i.e.,
locales,
the
généralement pour
decentralized and
développer des
non-governmental
services
cooperation.
d'accès
These
à l'eau
people have a
potable et
long-term
d'assainissement.
work, and
Et on veut que ces services
they
soient
establish some
pérennes et
services of
viables
water and
économiquement. Donc pour cela, il y
sanitation
aura
that
beaucoup de
can be
renforcement des
on a long
capacités à
term, that
faire
can be
au sein des
economically viable,
différents
and work
services
on capacity building
déconcentrés
and
ou
capacity
décentralisés ou au
strengthening,
niveau des services
and
techniques
also they work
des
with the
municipalités, par exemple.
decentralized
Et après,
technical
contrairement
services of
aux
the
acteurs urgentistes qui ont
municipalities.
une
Of
flexibilité
course,
financière,
in
les
to the
acteurs
contrary
de
of the
développement, il y a des
emergency
procédures
actors,
d'ailleurs
of
à
course, all
respecter. Et
these
quand il y a un
procedures
contexte de crise ou de choc,
have
c'est un peu
specific
plus
and very
compliqué
rigid
à s'adapter assez
rules,
rapidement. Par
and they
exemple, si on a un afflux
but
massif
sometimes
de
we
déplacés
have
internes,
to
on peut le
adapt very
répliquer.
quickly if, for example,
Si
we
tu peux
have
passer
a
sur
very big number of refugees or
voilà.
displaced who come
Donc,
to
du
the
coup,
areas. So, consequently,
aujourd'hui, on observe une superposition des
we
crises.
see
Donc,
today
on a des crises qui s'installent dans le temps.
some
On a une
overlapping
gestion de
of the
choc où il
different
faut répondre,
crises.
mais
So
après on
we
revient à
have
la
first of
normale.
all the
Quand on prend
Syrian
le
crisis
contexte au
that
Moyen-Orient
took a
ou
long
aussi au
period of
Sahel,
time, and now
on a
we
vraiment
have
des
the
crises sur le long
Lebanese
terme.
crisis.
Et
So
donc
we have
là,
long-term
les acteurs
crisis in
urgentistes de
in the
développement
Middle
donc,
East,
essayent
and
de
one of the
travailler
actors
en nexus
for
parce
development
qu'on
is
voit que les
trying to
actions
work
peuvent être
within a
différentes avec des
nexus,
objectifs
because we see
différents, mais elles
that we
sont
have different
complémentaires.
actions that are
Les urgentistes vont
in
pouvoir
different
agir assez rapidement,
contexts, but
mais les
they
acteurs de développement
they
vont
complete
pouvoir
each other.
être là
Consequently,
aussi
the different actors for
pour
development
préparer
need
l'après
to be
et
here in
aussi
order
pour
for
faire en
them to
sorte que ce qui a été
prepare
fait
the
auparavant
after
ne se
the
casse,
post-crisis period, and
ne se casse pas
also
la figure avec le choc,
for them
mais
not
essayer
to
de
be
maintenir
taken
les
aback
services
with any
fonctionnels.
shock with
Et on voit
regards
aussi que les
to
acteurs urgentistes
having
ne font pas
functional
uniquement
services.
maintenant de
Now,
l'urgence
of course, the emergency
dans un
actors are not only
contexte
working
qui est
on
instable, mais
emergency
qui a
now
des
within
phases
a
un peu de
very
stabilité
unstable
et de calme
context, but
relatif. Donc les acteurs urgentistes essayent
they
parfois donc,
try
de mettre en place
sometimes
des projets
to
structurants
establish some
afin d'augmenter la
structural
résilience aussi
projects
des
for them to
populations dans les pays qui
increase
sont en
the
crise en
the
permanence.
resilience of the
Et
population
notamment, il y a de plus en
of
plus
these countries
d'actions
that are in
préventives, notamment dans le secteur
a
de la santé,
permanent
de l'accès à l'eau
crisis,
potable
and
et
also
l'assainissement, pour
they
voilà,
intervene in the
travailler avec les
access
acteurs de
to
développement pour
water
mettre
and
en place des
sanitation.
choses
They try to
pérennes
also
qui essayent
establish
de résister
some
au choc.
long-term
Si on peut aller voilà, à
and
la
permanent
slide
structures
suivante.
that may face
Donc,
all
du
these
coup, en
shocks.
contexte d'urgence,
Consequently, within
généralement,
this emergency
quand il y a
context,
des
in
activités
general,
dans un
whenever
pays
we
en
have
crise,
some
le tout est
activities in
coordonné
a
par un
crisis
cluster.
country,
Notamment, donc
we
là, pour
have
l'accès à l'eau et
clusters,
l'assainissement,
namely a
c'est le
cluster
cluster
with
WASH qui,
regards to the
généralement,
WASH
c'est
and the
coordonné par
access to
l'UNICEF.
water. This is
Donc,
in general coordinated by the UNICEF.
l'UNICEF va essayer de collecter et de
So the
centraliser
UNICEF
les
will try
données
to
eau et
collect and
assainissement
centralize all
pour avoir
the
une vue
information
d'ensemble
related
des
to WASH, for them
activités
to have
d'urgence
a
dans
general
la zone
overview of
de
the
crise.
emergency
Et
activities
dans
that
ce
are done under
processus-là,
the
donc les acteurs
crisis.
de
And in
développement
this
et de
process,
coopération
these
décentralisée peuvent jouer un rôle, car en effet,
elements
avec la
can play a very
coopération
important
historique,
role thanks
notamment,
to
elles peuvent
their
avoir
historic
des données
cooperation,
importantes
especially
et précieuses qu'ils peuvent
that they
partager au
have
cluster
now a very important
sur les
database. They
services
can really
qu'ils appuient.
share them
Ils peuvent
with the
faciliter
cluster
aussi
with
la
regards
mise
to
en
the
relation
different
avec les
services. They can
autorités et les
also
partenaires locaux dans
establish
certaines
some
zones.
relations and
Donc,
some links with
les
the
acteurs CDNG ont
authorities,
quand même
namely
un
at the
rôle
local level.
important
Consequently,
de par cette
these
historicité
actors
et
have a
de
very
ces liens,
important
de ces
actor
partenariats
because they have this historic
et des
partnership
informations très importantes que
with the
diffuse le
local
cluster WASH.
authorities
Et
and the
ensuite,
central authorities.
le cluster
In
WASH va
addition
pouvoir
to the
coordonner et
fact
orienter
that the
les
cluster
activités
WASH
d'accès à l'eau et
or the
l'assainissement
WASH
pour répondre
cluster
au mieux
will
aux besoins
help
d'urgence.
a
Et les
better to
acteurs
have
de
a better
développement et de
integration
coopération
of
décentralisée peuvent aussi
the
avoir un
work
rôle à
of
jouer.
the emergency
Ils peuvent
actors.
appuyer leurs partenaires
In
locaux sur des
fact,
actions
they can
préventives,
support the
par
local
exemple,
actors
créer des stocks de contingence
for
ou créer
preventive measures
penser des
with
scénarios
regards to
d'urgence quand on a
emergency
un
and
peu
contingency, especially
des
whenever
moments
we
de
have
répit pour faire face à de futurs
some
chocs. Ils peuvent essayer de penser à la sécurisation
calmies for them
d'approvisionnement
to
en
work
eau et en
for
énergie,
the future, and
notamment
they
en
can provide
renforcement de
water and
capacité de services
energy
techniques.
and also strengthen
Et
the
aussi,
capacities
c'est
of the
aussi
technical
réfléchir avec les
services.
acteurs
Also, they try
urgentistes,
to think
voir qu'est-ce qu'ils vont
with
faire
the
pour leur
emergency
action
actors to see
d'urgence,
what they
pour
will
pouvoir
be
ensuite
doing
intégrer
within
au
their
mieux
emergency
les
action
ouvrages
for them
créés dans
to
ce contexte
integrate
d'urgence, pour
all
les
the
intégrer sur le
emergency
long terme
work on the
et au
long
service d'eau et
term,
d'assainissement
and to
une
see
fois
whether
que le
they can
calme,
really be at
le
the
répit
service
revient.
of water and sanitation when we
Donc
come
voilà un peu ce qu'on
back
peut dire
to
sur,
a calmer period.
cette coordination entre acteurs
So this is
urgentistes et
mainly
du
what we're
développement.
doing with
Et
regards
pour
to the
dire que les
coordination
acteurs
between
français,
the
donc de
different
coopération
actors,
décentralisée et
the
développement, malgré la
CNDG
situation de
and
crise au
the
Liban, peuvent
emergency
avoir
ones.
un
Now,
lien
with the
à
crisis
jouer
in Lebanon,
voilà, en
both actors
coordination
can
avec les
have
acteurs
a very important
urgentistes et
link
le cluster WASH. Et si vous voulez
to
aller un
do
peu plus loin
between
sur
the
cette
emergency and
réflexion-là, le
the
pS-Eau a écrit
WASH
une fiche de
cluster. And
synthèse
if you want to
montrant
have
un peu
more
les
information,
enjeux
we
des
have a
acteurs de développement
synthesis
dans des situations
sheet
de
that you
crise.
can
Et aussi, si vous voulez
review,
aller
and
voir
you
un
have
peu
the
plus
link
loin
for it. And
sur
if you really
qu'est-ce qui
want
se
to go
passe au
beyond
Liban, vous
this and to
pouvez
know what is happening
consulter
in
le site
Lebanon,
de
you can
Relief Web,
see
qui
the
a
website
été
of
créé par
Relief
OCHA, qui est
Web that
l'organisation
is
de l'ONU qui
really
coordonne les affaires humanitaires, et bien sûr
furnished
contacter le
by the
référent du
United
cluster WASH
Nations,
qui est
and
Liban.
also we can resort to to our
Merci Jérémy pour ces éléments. Donc, c'est en tout cas
coordinators of
une
Relief
introduction pour
Lebanon.
dresser les
Thank you
grandes lignes
very
de ces
much,
enjeux-là
Jeremy,
qui bien
for
évidemment
all the
dont on va
information that you
débattre
have given us. In fact,
pendant
all these
ce
information
webinaire.
will be debated
Donc,
during this webinar.
pour
Now,
commencer avec,
for us to
avec les
start
interventions en
with
tant que
our
telles,
interventions,
donne la parole au
I
coordinateur
will be giving the floor
du
to
secteur WASH,
the
justement, du cluster
National
WASH.
WASH Coordinator
Vous êtes là,
from
je vois.
UNICEF. I see that you're here.
Good
Bonjour.
morning, everyone.
Yacoub.
Can you hear me well?
Oui, on vous entend.
Yes, we can hear you
Donc,
very
c'est là
well.
que les francophones et
So
néerlandophones peuvent tester si
now
ils ont bien
all
paramétré
the French
leur
people can
partenariat.
see whether they have really
Quelqu'un
chosen
ici,
the
c'est le
good
moment de le dire.
channel. So if you have any problem, please tell
Tout
us.
va bien? Ok, parfait.
Will you
Oui.
be presenting slides from your end, or I should present from my side?
Non, non, je vous en prie, du coup, je vous laisse prendre la main.
I
Allez-y.
will give, no, you do it, please.
Okay.
En attendant, j'en profite pour vous dire, j'ai vu un peu les messages qui
I
circulaient
just
pour vous
wanted to
identifier
tell you
mutuellement.
that
Peut-être qu'il y a des personnes qui
I saw all the messages where you have introduced yourself. For those who did not do so, please do it, and please tell us which organization you represent, because this would be very helpful for us to identify you. Thank you. So you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Just 1 second. So I will focus on, good morning, everyone. So my name is Jakub Pająk. I'm WASH sector coordinator with UNICEF. And I will focus on the structure of coordination at the beginning, and then give the brief on the overall situation of the WASH sector in the current emergency. So the WASH sector is led by the Ministry of Energy and Water. Suzy Hayek is the focal point for that. And UNICEF is co-leading the WASH sector in Lebanon with World Vision and the NGO, international NGO, co-coordinating together with UNICEF. This is the structure at national level, and we have also a structure for 4 regions in Lebanon, for Northern Akkar, Baalbek, Bekaa Baalbek Hermel, Southern Nabatea, and Beirut Mount Lebanon, where we have a shared coordination between UNICEF and NGOs, local NGOs or INGOs, in collaboration with the water establishments. We also have 3 active thematic groups within the WASH sector. One is focusing on community engagement, And the other one that was already mentioned a few times is a stabilization thematic group led by LEWAP, Jasmine, that links the work done by humanitarian actors with stabilization and development programs. And we also have the water quality thematic group that links the work of humanitarian actors with the Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Public Health, Emergency Surveillance Unit. In the past few years, Lebanon faced several issues, the multiple crises, Syria crisis, the energy economic crisis, COVID outbreak, cholera outbreak in 2022, and since October 2022, the cross-border hostilities with Israel. And the people in need of WASH assistance that WASH sector estimated for 2024 was 2.6 million out of 5.6 million population residing in Lebanon. Our request as a WASH sector was $190 million plus 16 million for the emergency response in the south. So over 200 million that was required for the response in 2024. Unfortunately, since 23rd of September this year, we are seeing the huge escalation of conflict in the country. A lot of cross-border shelling and bombardment in many parts of the country. South, Baalbek, Hermel, North, southern suburbs of Beirut, and also some random spots across the country, and also including Beirut, with escalation of that in the past few days. Since 23rd of September this year, the IOM displacement tracking matrix tracked almost 900,000 internally displaced people within Lebanon. And government is estimating that the number of people is even higher than this, with the figure of 1.2 million. We have nearly 15,000 injured people, including 1,300 children, and over 3,500 people lost their life, including many children. On the graph, you can see the distribution of displaced people. On this chart on the top, you can see that there was a sharp increase within the first week or weeks of escalation, with hundreds of thousands of people displaced. And we have almost 190,000 people in collective shelters, which put a lot of pressure on WASH sector and WASH actors. And in addition to all that, we have between 500 to 600,000 people that left Lebanon to Syria. So within those, especially within the initial first week or 2 weeks of the escalation, we had a huge number of collective shelters that open in many areas of the country. And currently, after 2 months of this escalation, we have nearly 1,200 collective shelters. 60% of them are public schools. Most of those shelters are full. There is no more capacity to host people. And yes, I mentioned that there's 100,090 people in those collective shelters. In addition, we have damages to the water and sanitation infrastructure. Since the beginning of the conflict in 2023, we tracked at least 36 water stations that were impacted by the hostilities, and 11 staff of water establishments were killed in the conflict. And this doesn't capture all damages that happened to water infrastructure, water sanitation. the water network, the sewer network that we are not able to assess currently are for sure severely damaged by the situation, by the hostilities. Because of this recent escalation, the flash appeal was put in place, where we are trying to target 1 million people with assistance, 1 million at the system level, 350,000 direct. Or willing to contribute to the wash sector emergency response. Currently, we have 80 wash actors or non-wash actors providing some kind of wash assistance in collective shelters only. And on the top of that, we have at least 20 other actors doing wash in the country. And our responses of the emergency response, the main pillars, was provision of wash services to people in collective shelters, reparent operation of water supply infrastructure, direct assistance to most vulnerable people out of collective shelter, and support to people on the move, and also support to people in hard-to-reach areas, mainly through convoys. This is just a snapshot of the wash sector response in collective shelters in the past 2 months. I'm not going to stop on this, and just very briefly on the challenges and the constraints that we are facing. The whole situation is bringing high the public health risks due to large number of displacement in the country, people in the displaced to collective shelters with limited access to proper services. Not all those shelters are up to emergency standard yet. In addition, on the top of that, we had one case of cholera in the past few weeks in the north of the country. Migrants and Syrians that are also displaced within the country, they faced issues with access to collective shelters. There are also evacuation orders by the Israeli forces for the areas that have collective shelters. In some areas, due to security risk, there were suspicion of wash services to informal settlements for Syrian refugees. I mentioned that we already have a lot of issues with the water and wastewater systems. This is not only linked to the damages, but also to the electricity supply. Some of the infrastructure is inaccessible due to security constraints. We have displacement of humanitarian staff and the operators of the water stations sometimes, and some issues with the supply chain. The main needs that we see at this moment is the fuel supply for water pumping mainly, and the emergency repair and maintenance of the water supply systems. That requires around $3 million per month. The continuity of service provision for collective shelters with nearly 200,000 people in those shelters. We are just at the beginning of winter in Lebanon. The weather is harsh, especially in the higher areas of the country. We have some of the collective shelters at the altitude of 2,000 meters. So hot water is one of the requirement for the shelters to maintain the proper hygiene of the people and well-being of the people displaced to the shelters, and the increase of the support to informal settlements. Unfortunately, as a sector, and our emergency response is funded only in around 20%. So we have 83% funding gap for our emergency responses. And we are also appealing to the sides of the conflict for safe humanitarian access to people remaining in the hard-to-reach areas and to the water infrastructure. Thank you very much.
Merci de ce partage. Est-ce que
Thank
vous
you
pouvez
for sharing this
couper votre partage
information.
d'écran?
Can you please stop sharing your screen?
Ça fait beaucoup d'informations hein, sur la situation
This is
actuelle.
a lot
Merci
of
beaucoup et
information
sur
on the
l'action
current
du
situation, and
cluster WASH.
would like to thank the
Est-ce
actions
que
led
certains
by the WASH
participants
cluster.
ont des questions, des réactions
Do you
sur
have
ces
any
éléments?
questions with regard to these information or elements?
N'hésitez pas à prendre la parole. Hein.
Do not hesitate
Oui,
to
alors,
take the floor.
je vois quelqu'un lever la main. Je vous en
And I
prie.
see that there is someone who has raised his hand.
Yes, thank you, LEWAP. Thank you for the WASH coordinator from UNICEF. I happen to be an ex-UNICEF WASH officer, which was very active during the Syrian crisis. I'm curious to know today at UNICEF.
I can see the hand of Jumana, but I cannot hear.
Can't you hear me? Hello?
Oui.
Hello?
Yes,
Do you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you. Yes,
Can hear you.
But seems the WASH officer at UNICEF does not.
Yaqub, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Jasmine. Yes.
Okay.
Yaqub, Yaqub.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems, Jumana, it seems that Yaqub cannot hear you.
What can we do about that?
Maybe if you can type the question in the chat and we can relay it to him directly.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
And colleagues, I'm able to stay with you only for the next 20 minutes, but if you will have any question, please channel this question to Jasmine. So I will reply later.
Okay.
Peut-être que c'est le temps de traduction hein, qui fait que vous n'avez pas encore entendu la question, mais bon, en tout cas,
Maybe
peut-être
because
que vous
of
pouvez la poser dans le chat.
the timing in the translation, you couldn't hear the answer, but this is the question in the chat box.
Cécile? Rémi.
Bonjour. Je voulais savoir, comme il existe
Cécile.
des clusters sur l'eau, est-ce qu'il existe aussi des clusters sur les déchets?
There are clusters for water, but is there any clusters for waste management?
Moi, j'avais eu des
As Yaqub has said,
en matière de déchets et d'eau.
I would like to have information with regard to waste and water.
If the question is related to solid waste, this falls under a social stability sector in Lebanon. So traditionally, it's a part of WASH, but in Lebanon, because of the different line ministries, it's under social stability sector.
Ok, donc il n'y a pas de coordination des ONG sur le secteur des
So
déchets
there
comme
is
c'est le
no
cas pour
coordination
l'eau.
from the NGOs as is the case for water.
Donc le cluster
There
WASH,
is
parce
through
que
social stability
allez-y.
sector. The social
Pardon?
stability sector is led by UNHCR, I think. Oh no, sorry, it's led by UNDP.
Donc le cluster WASH qui finalement
So
coordonne
the
l'action
WASH
des différentes
cluster
ONG.
is coordinating the actions of the different
Qui a en
NGOs.
capacité d'informer sur quelles ONG
And
intervenir
it
dans
has
quelles
the
régions, quelles
capacity
actions en ce moment.
to know with
Cette
what
coordination
NGO
générale
to
avec les
intervene, what to
différents
do.
sous-groupes
It,
thématiques.
it does this coordination
Donc
with the
peut-être que
different
ça,
thematic
vous n'avez pas
groups.
forcément de questions ou d'idées pour l'instant, mais
So
n'hésitez pas
if you have any questions or ideas for the moment, you can get back to LEWAP for specific questions on the different regions you are working with.
Est-ce que quelqu'un d'autre a une question?
Do you have any additional questions?
Mélodie, ça s'est affiché devant nous la question de Jumana.
Melody, we have the question raised by Shumana.
La question est affichée.
So
Et
Vas-y,
je pourrais le demander directement à Yacoub, si tu veux.
you can ask
Oui,
it
tu peux
directly
faire, c'est
to
bien.
Yacoub.
Très bien.
Okay. Yacoub, so the question from Jumana, she's asking, at UNICEF Wash Department today, are there two programs, one for the regular support to Ministry of Energy and Water and for establishment, and one for the ongoing emergencies? And what are the budgets allocated for each?
That's correct. That there are two programs. One is related to the ministry and water establishment support to the system level support. Another one is to emergency. But I'm not in the position to answer this question on behalf of UNICEF because I'm a sector coordinator hosted by UNICEF. So the question is to be directed to UNICEF.
Okay, thank you, Yacoub. On a une question aussi de Rassan.
Oui.
We have a question from
Je peux te
Ghassan.
placer. Rassan, tu veux prendre la parole?
Ghassan,
Oui, c'était juste pour
would you like
rebondir
to
un
take
petit
the
peu
floor?
sur ce qu'avait avancé ou la question posée par
Yes,
Madame
I would
Rémillon
like to come back
concernant les déchets. En fait, pour les
to the
déchets
question
solides,
of
c'est effectivement
solid waste.
des sérieux problèmes
This is a very
que
serious
l'administration doit faire face,
problem
auxquels l'administration
that
doit
we
faire
are
face.
facing.
Et donc peut-être que c'est,
And
même si c'est pas dans le cadre de notre discussion d'aujourd'hui,
maybe, and even if
c'est
it is not within the
effectivement
framework of
un
our
des
discussions
secteurs
today,
qui
this is one of the
souffre le plus
sectors
de
that
cette
are suffering the most
augmentation, disons, des
from
besoins
the
de gestion et
increase in
d'entretien des
the
déchets
needs,
solides
most notably
liés à
for
l'exploitation
the
et à l'accueil
treatment of the solid waste, especially for
des
hosting
déplacés de guerre.
populations
On avait vécu
and
ça
for
avec
the displaced
Syriens.
populations. We have seen this with
Et
the displaced
aujourd'hui,
persons coming from
c'est
Syria.
encore plus
And today,
prégnant
the
parce que
situation
dans
is
certaines
even worse.
municipalités, il y a des efforts
In
quand même de
some
tri
municipalities,
et
they are
on utilise
sorting
cette
the
disponibilité
waste,
comme un sujet d'animation auprès des
and
jeunes
they are
et
using
des
the thematic of sorting
centres
out waste
d'hébergement
as
collectif qui sont
uh,
s'intéressent à ça,
a matter
voir un
of
petit peu
discussion, and most notably for
ce
the
qui
young
pose
people,
le
in
plus
order
de
to be
déchets.
interested with the issue of
Effectivement, c'est
waste.
un sujet qui, disons que les municipalités ont du
In
mal
fact, this
à
is
appréhender
an
par
issue
moyen.
that is really difficult for municipalities.
De façon générale, je m'adresse à Jacob. De façon générale, c'est un
I'm
sujet
addressing my
qui
question
existe de
to
façon
Jacob.
générale dans les situations de crise, je suppose.
This
Est-ce
is
qu'il y a
a situation that emerges
s'est créé
during
en
crises.
la matière?
Is there any network that has been established with regard to this thematic?
Yes, I will drop in the chat the contact to Mohammed, who is a social stability sector coordinator from UNDP, because solid waste management and sorting this falls under social stability sector basically. So I will drop you the contact.
Et Mélodie, ce que je sollicitais tout à l'heure, c'est que les différents intervenants mettent leur contact email dans le chat.
Melody, can the different speakers add their emails in the chat box so we can exchange a
La
little
liste des
bit?
participants sera partagée, mais effectivement, on ne peut pas
The
partager
list of
le
speakers
dossier d'adresse sans l'accord général.
will be
C'est un peu
shared.
plus compliqué d'être certain que tout le monde est d'accord avec ça. Donc oui, n'hésitez pas à
So
partager vos
please do
coordonnées
not
dans le chat.
hesitate to share your emails in the chat, as well as
Les
the
intervenants,
persons
ça, on
who
pourra le
will
partager dans
intervene to take the floor.
Donc c'est intéressant de voir qu'on glisse sur le sujet déchets, même si c'est pas la thématique du jour. Effectivement, il n'y a pas une
It was
vision
interesting to know about the sewage and the solid waste, even though it's not the thematic of today. Today, we are focusing on the coordination in the water sector, but those are close issues.
Question to Yacoub, please.
Ok.
Yasmine?
Ouais. D'accord. So Yacoub, there's another question from Jumana. What are the main WASH interventions today in public schools sheltering the forcibly displaced Lebanese? And how can a Lebanese NGO working in WASH become a member of the WASH cluster?
So the main WASH activities in collective shelters is provision of facilities, toilets, showers, laundry spaces, according to emergency standards, connecting collective shelters, school or other buildings to the water network where it is feasible, or to the sewer system. If it is deemed necessary, water tracking or dislodging services, installation of additional water tanks to increase the storage capacity in the shelters, distribution of hygiene, family hygiene kits, menstrual hygiene kits, baby kits, and cleaning items for the shelters. And I think that's most of the activity, the main activities that the WASH sector is providing in the shelters. As a part of winterization, we are focusing on securing funds and installing the water heaters. There are mainly two types of water heaters: the hybrid solar electric water heaters, and for water, and or fuel water heaters. In some of the shelters, we are also trying to provide the washing machines to enable the proper hygiene in this matter. And for the local NGOs, we have many local NGOs, Lebanese NGOs, participating in the WASH sector meetings. Please get in touch with me, so we can organize the introductory meeting and explain directly how to get in touch with us. And I've seen also the second question, that another question in the chat from Nabil. So yes, indeed, we are trying to work with the water establishment on limiting the flow of water to the southern suburbs of Beirut, where there is not many people, if there are any. And with this, to increase the water supply for Beirut, to minimize the need of water tracking.
Merci de ces compléments. Peut-être une question pour rebondir justement.
Thank you
Comment
for
se
this
passe
additional
vos
information.
réseaux
Another
de
question,
coordination
how do you carry out your
différentes
coordinating
sous-thématiques?
meetings?
De quelle
You
façon
have
il est possible de joindre ces réunions, que ce soit
sub-thematics.
en
So
présentiel, en
how
distanciel?
can
Vous allez
someone
permettre
join these
de
meetings?
possibilités pour
Do
les
you
ONG
do these
libanaises
meetings
de
in present
participer?
or remotely?
Dans quelle
Can
mesure
the
sont
Lebanese
ouvertes
NGOs
les contacts
participate? How to participate to these meetings?
Yes, there is a link to subscribe to different coordination platforms under WASH sector that can be also shared in the chat here. And the meetings used to be in hybrid mode, so in person at the Ministry of Energy and Water. This is the national meeting, and mainly at UNICEF buildings in the regions. But because of the security situation, since 2 months, we moved to online meetings in most of the cases.
Très bien, donc il est possible probablement que
So it is
certaines
most probably
activités,
possible
entreprises
that some of the colleagues participate if you are interested. This is a good idea.
On va peut-être pas trop tarder à passer au point suivant,
Yes, and
sauf
I
s'il
will
y a
drop
encore
the link on how to
Oui.
subscribe to the mailing list of the sector.
Merci.
Mélodie, est-ce que je peux poser une autre question avant?
Oui, Claire.
Elodie, may I ask another question?
Un peu une question en lien avec la présentation de
It is a
Jérémy.
question
Je me
linked
demandais
to the presentation
parce
of
qu'il y avait deux
Jeremy.
interventions finalement, des interventions qui étaient plus
We
de
have
développement,
seen
notamment
two
au niveau de
presentations
l'établissement
with
et une
regard
autre
to the
sur
development of water
l'intervention
establishment,
d'urgence
and
pure
now
avec
we
l'ONG
are
qui arrive.
talking
Alors aujourd'hui,
about
comme une
emergency
budget,
responses
j'aimerais bien
and
approfondir, voir
the
comment en fait vous
NGOs.
construisez sur tout le travail que vous avez fait précédemment avec
With
les
regard to
établissements
budgets,
publics et
how
privés, les
do
grands
you
programmes en fait
work
de renforcement
with the
de
water
capacité des
establishment
établissements
and
les uns et
the UNICEF?
dans
How
quelle mesure en fait le travail que vous
build
faites
the
vous
capacities
permet
with
d'avoir
regard
des
to water
réponses qui est
establishments
plus
and
localisée aux
the
urgences, que
work
ce soit en
you
lien
are
avec les
doing? How
établissements
does it
locaux ou des fois
allow
avec les
you to have
municipalités,
a
ou bien vous avez
localized
une réponse complètement
response?
différente, une réponse d'urgence pure avec
We
les
know
ONG que vous
that this
coordonnez.
is an
Et puis je
emergency
pense que
response.
j'imagine un peu plus en suspens aujourd'hui avec vos partenariats avec les établissements des eaux. Voilà, c'est
Today,
un peu quel lien vous faites entre les deux.
so we have two
modalités de
responses,
coopération.
an emergency response and another long-term response. How do you coordinate between these two responses?
Le temps de la traduction, je pense.
Yes, for the system level support, it's mainly done through the water establishment, so it is still centralized in the regions, and we have few actors supporting water establishments through regular programs or through emergency support. And emergency support is mainly linked to fuel provision to operate the pumping stations. And emergency repair and maintenance of the stations that were impacted, or yes, so that's the way how the two programs works together, and so the coordination is done at through the water establishment and coordination with the main actors and water establishments. But because of the emergency situation, we also have the areas where are no longer under the water establishment water supply. So they are switching to other water sources that are available at the village municipal levels. So there is also a support to the municipalities to operate the water supply systems when there is no water supply from through water establishment.
Thank you. Merci. On voit qu'on glisse un peu sur l'importance des autres acteurs que les ONG, justement, les municipalités ont été
we are
mentionnées.
talking now about the municipalities in line with other actors, and that's why we will go to the second presentation, which will talk about the role of the civil society organizations, which are playing an important role in such a situation. I think that we will have with us Leah from Acted.
Est-ce que vous avez la présentation ou c'est Mélodie?
Do you have the presentation? Do I have to share my screen?
Je suis pas certaine d'identifier la bonne.
Pas de souci.
Très bien.
Donne-moi juste une petite seconde et je fais ça. Mélodie, tu peux juste me rappeler sur Zoom où c'est pour partager. Ah, voilà, c'était au milieu. Pardon.
Flèche verte.
Oui, j'ai plus l'habitude de Zoom. Ok, allez. Où est-ce qu'elle est? C'est parti. Est-ce que tu peux voir mon écran?
Oui, il arrive en tout cas.
Ok, super. Ça. Ok. Est-ce que... Ah, c'est pas
Oui,
la
c'est
bonne.
bon.
Juste
C'est chargé.
attends. Ouais, mais ça, c'est là.
Yeah, we can see it. Perfect.
Juste une toute petite seconde.
Just give me one small second.
Voilà. Bonjour à tous. Est-ce que vous
Good
m'entendez
morning,
bien? Donc,
everyone. Can you hear me? I am Leah
Mascaro.
Mascaro. I am from Acted, and I am the coordinator of a EU-funded project that is called Acted in Lebanon, and it is, of course, in the water sector. Today,
qui était censée représenter Acted, mais
In fact, it was my director who had to represent Acted, but she could not make it. This is why I will try to give you some answers with regards to Acted. And in fact, we are an international NGO, but we work with the local actors, namely the civil society organizations and the NGOs. And this is why I will be talking a little bit about the observations that we have had with regards to the different challenges of with regards to our activities, and namely the emergency response and also the different developments.
Tu peux peut-être mettre ta présentation en panneau
Leah, can you put your presentation in an overview or in presentation mode? I cannot find it, Leah says.
Là, tu la vois en diaporama maintenant?
Can you see it in presentation mode? No, it's fine. Okay, I'll stop sharing and then I'll share again. Maybe it will be better.
Comme ça.
Let's try it this way.
Est-ce que là, c'est mieux?
Is it fine now? Can you see it? No, we can't see anything.
Non, attends, je crois que je l'ai trouvé.
Attends. Ça devrait marcher là. Est-ce que là, c'est mieux?
Can you see it now? Is it better? Yes, this is perfect. Thank you. Great. So, very briefly with regards to Acted. I know that this is not the entire topic, but I will be explaining our approach, because our approach tells you what we're doing in Lebanon. In fact, Acted is a French NGO, but we work on development and emergency in Lebanon. In fact, we mainly work on the issue of localization. So we have 80 civil society organizations that we work with. We have supported them with during our work in Lebanon, so not all of them in the water sector, but we're working with 80 civil society organizations. So we have a very big part of our so 95% of our projects that are implemented by local partners and CSOs in 2024, 250,000 euros that were provided to local partners and CSOs, and we have 25 CSOs supported in 23-24 by Acted. So what about our approach? In fact, I'm trying to show it this way because I need to tell you what is really working in Lebanon after all the experience that we've had with the Lebanese. So we're trying to create some spaces to work on some brainstorming and information exchange to reach some innovative ideas. I know that this is not the topic of our meeting, but we have worked with on recycling and upcycling. We have worked with Upcycle, which is a Lebanese organization that works on recycling. This is a principle. Or the base was to put people in contact with this organization. So we put people who want their garbage to be collected and they pay a little amount of money, and this organization upscales and upcycles the garbage. And so we try also in the emergency, we try to put in touch the civil society organizations and the researchers, as well as the entrepreneurs who have some ideas that allow them to be piloted, namely when we're talking about waste and also water treatment, etc. There is also a very important element that was already tackled to see how can we really support all these civil society organizations with regards to the capacity building. So my presentation is in English, and this is why I'm mixing between the two languages. She says, so we're trying to see how can we really support them in order to work on their project management and the management of the funds, because this is a very big problem in Lebanon, so the access to funds. But also there is a technical part. So there's also the possibility of creating links and platforms. This is what we've done with LEWAP, where we try to establish some partnerships and we try to work with the CSOs, in addition also to to some private and public stakeholders. We also have a project where we've worked with society organizations to establish sanitary pads production plants that are done locally. So we try to involve the community members for them to have some revenues out of this production, and these pads are sold at a better price on the market. This allows also the people who are really very vulnerable to have this service. So we have resorted to some entrepreneurs and some researchers from the Lebanese university for them to develop the machine that works on producing these pads. So this is a collaboration between the public and the private sector and the CSOs. We also have a very important also element, which is the water level. And since we work on water, we try to work on advocacy in order to involve the water resources management organizations. So anything that is related to the integrated water resource management. So, if we want to focus our work, and I think that this is the most important part for you, I will be talking about the localization of the emergency response in Lebanon. Currently, you will see that we have learned lots of lessons from the Beirut port blast. So, in fact, this is a very important element because we need to enhance the fact that the local players are the first ones to be on the ground. And this is what we have seen, and this is what we also have seen previously in the Beirut blast. So they are the ones who have the capacity to respond on the ground. So these are the local, very small communities and local actors. They are the ones who have the capacity to mobilize the private funds, whether from the people, from the Lebanese diaspora, and from the locals who are more or less at ease. And they are the first ones to be on the ground. These are some actors who have a very immediate access because their action is in their own community. There is no need to gain the trust of the people, etc. So this is crucial. It is a crucial role, and we need to support and enhance the role of the civil society organizations. We also have other elements like, for example, the municipalities and the local authorities, but I know that there's another presentation that will be focusing on this specific point. This is why I will not be tackling it. So for us, there is a very important element, which is to work with these local actors, especially in Lebanon, where the emergency is now, with the site management, with all the IDPs. So also we need to work also with the DRM in Lebanon. We also have the CSOs and different communities. This also allows us to see to what extent we can have sustainability for the response, because in general, even if we have some emergency funds and at the institutional level, this is something that requires some time, while the needs are immediate ones, and these funds only remain for some specific month, and they need to be spent very quickly. But afterwards, we have a lot of problems because these funds will disappear, and we need to have something that is more sustainable. So while working on this emergency, we need to work also on this sustainability that needs to go on a long term. There is another element in Lebanon that is really very interesting. When we're working with some local organizations, we have the capacity to reach some marginalized populations, and here especially we can think of the migrant workers and other communities like the LGBTIQ, the disabled persons, the elderly. These are people who cannot go to IDP sites. And also with regards to the LGBTIQ, these are people who do not feel that they are in insecurity, or they do not feel secure and safe because of their sexual identity and gender identity. They cannot go to the sites. Also, we have the people who are disabled who face the same problem. So these communities, these local CSOs and the small ones have this knowledge and can develop a more integrated response and one that is really adapted to the context. Consequently, they can reach a bigger number of population, namely amongst the most vulnerable. Now, with regard to challenges, I think that we already talked about them. So all the local initiatives and the CSOs are often the first responders, as I said, and even if they have the capacity to mobilize their private networks very quickly, but they still face lots of challenges. So I would like to talk about the difficulty in accessing institutional funds because the donors require some guarantees, especially with regards to the procurement process and other financial elements, and this requires some resources and some knowledge that is not always available in these small local NGOs. And also we have some people who do not have the resources and the time to coordinate through the DRM, like for example the WASH group, because in general here we're talking about small CSOs that are also some made by volunteers. Consequently, since these people do not really take or get involved into the coordination mechanisms, they do not have or they do not reach all the information regarding WASH. So all this makes these people very active actors, but they have lots of difficulties in accessing the information and have a difficulty in making their response sustainable. This is, I know that we're a bit squeezed in time, so this is why I'll go quicker. So we have some problems with regards to the coordination. So for us in Acted, we also are the chair of the task force for relief. So through this, we have identified, especially at the start of the response, especially with regards to the CSOs and local initiatives, there were lots of things that were taking place, but also there was some duplication of efforts. Everything was really chaotic, very quick. It was difficult to understand who's doing what, especially when we're working far from the international, mechanisms, especially that these little CSOs do not have the capacity to go, to these meetings. They do not have the know-how to see how they can really be involved in these mechanisms. So this is why we have launched a local aid initiatives mapping. This is a public dashboard. So we have already 74 local initiatives that are taking part to it. They have, put their input with regards to this service. They have told us what are their contacts and which areas they are providing the services, etc. So the idea is that this will allow them to have more visibility in case the international organizations want to work with these small NGOs. They can use this dashboard, and this allows also the local initiatives to see who is doing what in order to avoid any duplication, especially in the different regions. They can coordinate in a better way. This allows also to have some connection between the different beneficiaries, especially that this is a public site that we are trying to share on the social networks, especially if we have some beneficiaries who want to help and some donors who want to help some beneficiaries. This is the dashboard. Another example that I would like to give you, and it was really very successful with at the start of the response, we have worked with Nation Station. This is a local initiative that started after the Beirut port blast. So it is an organization that works in Beirut. It is a very small local initiative. They have launched a call for assistance, and they received a lot of hygiene products like soap and also some food, etc. But they did not have the capacity to know where and to whom they need to distribute all these things, and they needed also funds. So what we've done is that we've helped them with the distribution. We have gathered all the items that they had. We have organized them in some kits, and we have distributed them to the most vulnerable people people. So this was only something that is really non-financial, but this was a partnership, through physical assistance. And I think that this is also something that would be interesting for you. In order to support the local initiatives, we are working on what is called the mini grant or mini grain. So we are telling them that we are guaranteeing these funds. So this is called the local initiative of small grants. So we are telling the big NGOs or the big donors that we can really guarantee the disbursement of these small grants for small projects, like, for example, to establish a waste management a mechanism in the IDP's site, especially that we have a huge, a huge quantity of waste that is being generated after the hot meals distribution. So we're trying to do so with some local organizations that are really specialized, especially with, vulnerable and marginalized populations like the LGBTQ ones. This was a very quick zoom on the emergency. Let me finish with some general overview. This is not really related to the emergency response, but I need to talk to you about this specific point. This is something that Acted Lebanon really worked on, and we really believe in it. We're trying to work on developing a participatory water management in the Lebanese basins. This comes under the Lebanese strategy, but it's not really finalized. So we can see that we have lots of lacks. This is something that needs to take its course, especially with regards to water. That is not now considered as a priority because we're talking about water systems, and some people consider that now this is not a real priority, especially when we're talking about the protection of the water basins. So this is why we said that maybe we will not be able to change this type of water management in Lebanon, but we can start with a bottom-up approach, working with the municipalities and the water establishment, take into consideration, of course, the ministry, and to start changing, to start the change with the municipalities and to work with them on specific plans that will be reflecting the local communities and hopefully will be implemented at the local level. We have worked with the Lebanese CNRS and some other research actors for us to work on 3 basins, and this also allowed us to work on some action plans and some activities that can be implemented by the different actors. We also have worked on some mapping of these basins to see what is the best way to involve these local organizations with the watersheds and the hydrological basins. So all these elements were presented to the different actors. And what we've decided to do was to give some grants and financial support to 11 actors of the civil society organizations with regards to these hydrological basins. It's 30 to 50,000 euros for them to be able to establish some water projects, to change the mentality, to change the thinking, and to improve the water awareness around these basins. Some of these projects were financed in Bekaa, 2 in Beirut, Lebanon, and 4 in the north. So we have the Asira, Ghadir, and Ustwan basins. So, of course, this still remains within small-scale projects, but in fact, this aims to change the thinking and to improve the water management until we reach a more global overview and a more participatory approach with regards to the water management. So these were the challenges that we are facing in Lebanon? What are the things that we can do in order to support them, the issues that are related to the water management and the emergency response in Lebanon? So this is everything that I had, and I hope that what I said is was interesting and gave you enough information, the information that you needed. Apologies for switching in when I'm talking in French. I apologize for switching from French to English. So whether you have any questions concerning ACTED or our experience, please do not hesitate. And also I can really refer you to some other colleagues who can talk about different other initiatives. So Melody, you have the floor. Thank you. Thank you, Leah, for this presentation. We really thought that it's very important to have this vision that is really hidden, and we needed to know all the work of the civil society organizations, the small ones, because they are the ones who can really work on the ground rapidly with different capacities, of course, and such an initiative that was launched by ACTED to coordinate and to link all these local initiatives, this was really appreciated. Do you have any questions? Do we have any participants who want clarifications or any questions regarding these elements? Yes, Cécile?
Désolée, je n'arrive pas à trouver le petit truc où on lève la main.
Sorry, I did not find the icon to raise the hand. No problem, no problem. Don't worry, go ahead.
Je trouvais très intéressant le dashboard qui a été remis
The dashboard
et je voulais
is really interesting.
avoir un petit peu plus de détails sur son
I just wanted to have some details with regards to its mainstreaming, because we talked about social networks and others.
une diffusion hors
Do
temps de
you
crise et
broadcast it, for example, not during the crisis time, and when and how? Answer. This dashboard was created in September when the crisis escalated. So consequently, we have only used it during the crisis. So now we're trying to give it more visibility. So it is more or less visible with the NGOs. We have shared it also with all the different working groups like WASH working group and social disability sector, etc. Also, we've shared it with the DRM, which is the governmental organization that is coordinating the response in the IDP's official centers. We also are mainstreaming it through ACTED when people are calling us asking for assistance, and we also shared this to inform people about it. Now, after the Beirut port blast, we tried to establish a fact sheet with different contacts for people who were calling us. We also have established a list for workers, contacts in case, for example, you wanted to repair your window or your door, etc. We have established a guide with the different contact names and people who work on these issues. So now this dashboard was recently created. Consequently, we've only used it here during this specific crisis. We only have these 74 who registered during this crisis, but I think that we thought that we need to take the place of these small initiatives that are really overwhelmed. I'll give you an example that I've lived. So one of these local initiatives contacted us. So this is a migrant worker who works on cleaning houses from Monday till Saturday, who created a shelter for the different IDPs amongst the migrant workers because their work, their bosses left them because they have, lost everything. Consequently, these people do not have the know-how. What we've done for them is that we try to call them, identify their service. We worked on the survey together with them, and they really appreciated our approach with them because this was an approach that allowed them to have more visibility, to adapt, to the to their vision. I know that I went beyond your question, but just to give you an example. So as I said, we are trying to diffuse it with the different organizations, NGOs, INGOs, private and public organizations, and of course our acted platform. These are the mainstreaming platforms that we are using. We're thinking to see how can we really make them more visible. I hope that I've answered your question. Yes, 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 perfectly. And yes, this was what we've heard, whether we're in a crisis or in a crisis management situation. It's very important to identify the NGOs, to map them, to know what they're doing, and to see how can we really anticipate the work with such actors.
La métropole de Nice et la ville de Nice travaillent actuellement avec le Liban.
Yes, for us, we're working with Lebanon with regards to risk management, and this is one of the main elements of our project. So it's interesting to share all these best practices, even if it is only with regards to some specific and technical files. This is something that can also be, shared at different other levels. Thank you. Mr. Dante?
Oui,
Raise your
bonjour,
hand.
Damien Brintet, donc je travaille au ministère des Affaires étrangères, je suis à la délégation pour les
Yes, I
collectivités
am Damien
territoriales.
Brintert. I
J'avais
work
une
with
question par
the
rapport à la cartographie que vous
local
avez effectuée ou que vous êtes toujours
collectivities
en
or
train
local communities. I want to go
d'effectuer sur
back to
les
this
bassins
issue of
versants,
the
sur les trois
mapping,
bassins versants.
namely with
Je voulais
regards to
savoir un peu
different
quels étaient vos
basins.
acteurs
I
privilégiés
wanted
pour
to see
ce travail. Est-ce
what
que c'est les
were the
collectivités, est-ce que c'est les
privileged
régions,
actors that you've
la partie
worked
pas du tout
with,
des
the
collectivités,
local
ou d'autres
communities, the
acteurs plus techniques?
municipalities, or different
Merci.
other technical
Merci pour votre
actors.
question. Oui, je vais vous
Answer,
partager,
thank you very
en fait,
much. I will
je vais
share
vous
with
partager
you
le rapport final. En fait, on a fait une
the
stakeholder
final
background
report
analysis. Je vais vous partager le
because
rapport
we've
aussi si
worked
ça vous
on
intéresse. Ça
a
permet en fait de
stakeholder analysis. I'll
visualiser
share it
les
with you, and this will
interactions.
allow
Je
you
peux
to
peut-être aussi
give,
vous partager
to
rapidement.
have,
En termes
all
d'acteurs
the
qu'on a engagés, en fait, on
interactions.
a essayé de
Now,
vraiment brasser
we
large,
tried
pour utiliser
to
les mots un peu simples. Donc, on avait des acteurs techniques. On a beaucoup mobilisé
resort to
auprès des
technical
universités,
actors. We
mais
mobilized
aussi
these
entrepreneurs
university
qui ont pu,
students
par
and
exemple, créer
graduates,
des
but also
solutions
some
sur la question
entrepreneurs
de la gestion
who
des eaux
have some
usées.
solutions
Je pense
concerning the
notamment
water
peut-être à
management.
Siwas et Runa qui ont développé
Siwas,
l'optimisation de
Runa,
des eaux usées.
both of them have
On a
developed
aussi essayé de
used
mobiliser des
water
acteurs de l'industrie
treatment
avec une
systems. We
ambiance
also
aussi un petit
resorted
peu
to
plus
the
mitigée.
industrial sector. Here we had a more mitigated
Mais quand même, on a eu beaucoup
success, but
d'entrepreneurs,
we
des acteurs de la
still worked
recherche.
with the
Sur
entrepreneurs and the
institutionnel, on a
researchers.
eu
Now, with the
beaucoup de
institutionals,
municipalités.
with the
C'était vraiment quelque
institutions,
chose
we've worked
que
with
nous,
lots
on
of
considérait
municipalities. This is
d'extrêmement
something that we
important.
have considered
Donc, en fait,
highly
on
crucial.
a par exemple, pour vraiment s'assurer qu'ils allaient
We
participer, on a
wanted to
vraiment
make
organisé
sure that
les
they will be
consultations
participating with us. This is why we launched
géographiquement au
some
niveau des bassins. On a
geographically
aussi mis en place
distributed,
des mécanismes de consultation
meetings
pour s'assurer qu'on
around the
vraiment
basins. We made
beaucoup de
sure
municipalités étaient
that
représentées. On avait des acteurs de la société
transportation
civile locaux.
was
On avait des représentants des
guaranteed to have
établissements
all the
à la fois
municipalities taking
le bureau
part. We
central
also
et les bureaux locaux, donc par
involved
exemple
the
des écoles de
central
Baalbek, etc.
and the local
On
offices,
avait
like
des
for
représentants
example,
du
the water
ministère de
establishment
l'Environnement,
in
le ministère
Baalbek.
de
We
l'Eau et de
also had
l'Énergie, le
the
ministère de
representatives
l'Industrie
of the Ministry of
et
Environment,
des ONG
Water and
aussi, donc
Energy,
ONG
Industry,
nationales et
and also
ONG
we resorted to
locales.
the local NGOs and international
Et vraiment, en fait,
NGOs.
on pense que
In
c'est le fait qu'on
fact,
ait tous ces gens
we
qui ont été
think
impliqués
that since all these
qui
people
nous
were
permet en fait
involved
de
with
vraiment
us,
prioriser les dossiers
this
de l'action
allowed us
plan
to
de
really
façon pas seulement technique,
put some
mais
set the
aussi
priorities
d'y refléter un petit
at
peu
the
les
different levels, and
et
also
quand
to
on a fait la sélection des projets des acteurs de la société civile, on a pris ça en
set the
compte
local
aussi les
priorities.
projets
When we also
qu'on
took into
entendait en fait,
consideration
parce
the
que souvent
different
cette consultation,
projects,
c'est
because
l'occasion
in
aussi à ce moment-là
fact,
de
these
faire remonter certaines
consultations are an
frustrations, de
opportunity
discuter
for
ce qui
people
n'avance pas
to talk
différemment
about their
sur la
frustration,
sortie
about their
d'acteurs
problems,
qu'on a mobilisés.
and
Merci
consequently,
beaucoup.
we can see the different sectors and stakeholders
Ok,
that are
next
involved.
person.
Thank you.
Vous levez la main déjà tout à l'heure.
Yes,
Jumana.
Jumana, you had a
Oui,
question?
merci Léa.
Thank you, Leia.
Pour ta présentation. Je voulais juste
Thank you for the
savoir,
presentation.
concerne le volume des déchets,
I
bien
wanted
sûr,
to see what is
qui est
the
généré à cause
waste
des
volume that is generated
surtout dans les
because
écoles, chez les
of the
défavorisés.
food distribution,
Il y a un
especially in the
programme en
public
place
schools
pour
that
du tri à la
became
source,
IDP
parce que
sites.
évidemment,
And are you
comme c'est le
working
cas,
on
moi je suis en train
sorting?
de travailler dans une
Because in this
de ces
case,
écoles.
I can
Il y a
help because I'm
moyen de
working on
faire,
this with some of the
de
schools. There
mettre
is
en
some
place une routine
possibilities
du tri à
to
la source, à la
establish
source,
a
qui fait
kind of,
que ces
routine
déchets
for
peuvent être
sorting
vendus
at the source,
immédiatement et
source
que
sorting.
enfin, on peut générer un certain revenu qui peut
And thus
profiter aux déplacés.
we can
Est-ce que vous
generate,
avez
some
quelque chose
revenue out of
dans ce
this for
sens,
these
ou est-ce que
IDPs.
vous
So are
êtes
you working on such
intéressé à ce
things, or
que
are you more
ce type
interested with
d'intervention soit mis en place?
other types
Alors,
of
merci pour votre
interventions?
question. Donc,
Thank
moi,
you.
j'avoue, je ne suis pas hyper spécialiste de la question de la gestion des déchets. À l'heure actuelle, Acted, on n'a pas ce système-là
I
en
am not
place.
specialized in waste. However, we have launched small initiatives through grants, and we can have something for the solid waste. However, this has not been launched yet. This is a good question, as you have said. And then I know that there are discussions that have been launched with UNICEF and Live, Love, Recycle in order to know if we can install a system of waste management at the port and waste management. However, for the moment, I think that this is still an idea, and we discussed these questions in the past. We have implemented similar projects in Lebanon with
un succès un petit peu limité parce qu'il y a quand
a
même
limited success because the waste management in Lebanon is a big issue. There is this institutional aspect and the local aspect. However, maybe you can communicate with our director and you can explore this with Live, Love, Recycle, who can give you an idea about this question. Answer. I don't think that Live, Love, Cycle have found the best formula that, but maybe I can communicate with your director. Maybe I can reach out and talk to her. I will add the name of the director, which is Gaëtan Vicar. Will you put the name on the chat, please? Thank you. Another question with regard to WASH interventions, and this question is not only directed to Acted, but all those who are intervening today. Are you taking into consideration that all these interventions, which are part of the emergency program today, may profit to the strategies and plans and plans and WASH plans and be beneficial to the ministries, the Ministry of Water and other ministries. So we have to think not only of an emergency logic, but also on a logic for the mid and long term in order for the investments and the grants and funds that are being used today may be beneficial not only on the short term, but also on the mid and long term. I can answer for Acted. The answer is yes. In fact, with Acted, we have this consortium, this important consortium, and we work with water establishment in order to improve the drinking water service. So we have this modality of work and collaboration with water establishment, and with the framework of the emergency funding, we try to include an activity or activities that are done by public networks be it maintenance services or other. Now we have lots of displaced people, and there are lots of schools that are connected to the network. We can work also about, or we work also with the solar panel establishment or the establishment of water panels to pumping station. So this is kind of activities that are being implemented. We have also both equipment and tools in order to make these networks operational. Now we are having an additional challenges with regard to fuel. So
sur un gros appétit pour fournir du fuel pour l'opération. Nous, on avait
we are
fait un
not
petit peu
finding too many donors to buy fuel for to bridge the gaps. And here I think that this is another level with regard to fuel. We try to push as much as possible in order to have this kind of activities within our emergency projects, because this is an emergency situation. As you have said, the schools will be underconnected, and we need also to do in parallel water trucking, but this is not sustainable. So this is not the whole answer I can provide. However, I can say that the majority of funds are going to non-sustainable activities such as water trucking. However, this is part of our strategy and the work we are doing in Lebanon. This is the perspective of ACTED.
Merci. Oui, je voulais juste préciser que l'IWAP, en fait,
I wanted to add that LEWAP is also associated to this project, and the role is not only about coordinating, but to create links between the multi-actors through organizing workshops on
porter dans le cadre du Wabokama des ateliers multi-acteurs pour mettre en débat
different thematics in order to discuss the results and the different thematics within the framework of the project. So we unite or we gather several actors such as municipalities and local actors. If you have no more questions for the moment or comments,
voilà, comment vous percevez les rôles des OSC, comment vous
or
avez
your
pu déjà
perspectives
travailler
on
avec
the role of the CSOs, if you have worked with CSOs.
Sinon, on peut passer à la suite.
If you have no comments, we can continue with an additional perspective that is the role of municipalities that have been mentioned several times. Jasmine, I give you the floor to continue the moderation. Maybe you can talk about the implication of LEWAP in the different initiatives that have been mentioned. Thank you, Melody. As it has been mentioned previously, and I will start with the WASH cluster. As Yaqub has said, LEWAP coordinates between different international and local organizations as well as donors within the framework of the thematic group of stabilization. The idea is to facilitate for the actors the implementation of their projects and to know what is doing, who is doing what. Also within the framework of this thematic, we are developing
je veux dire comme un fact sheet ou bien
a fact sheet
comme un document
or a document
directer les acteurs
that can orient the CSOs in their work.
On était en train de travailler sur un document sur les régions.
Before the start of the war, we were working on a document
de l'énergie solaire pour le water pumping et
with regard to energy, solar, water pumping, and water treatment. Also, within the framework of our work with the CSOs, and as Leah has said, within the consortium, Madad LEWAP has developed a network in cooperation with Lab Relief, which is a local CSOs. So we have developed a series of networks, local networks, and they were involved in the works that about the management of watersheds. They have facilitated several workshops in order to inform about the work of actors within the consortium and to provide this information to local CSOs and to have their opinion and how to see how they can be involved. So this is, in a nutshell, what we are doing. And if you are interested, I can send you the link to register to the newsletter. This is a quarterly newsletter. We broadcast information every 3 months on the activities that we are carrying out on the level of the WASH cluster or other workshops, as well as our workshop with the university and academic spheres. Now we will move to the second part of this workshop, which is about the involvement of Lebanese municipalities and in bringing their help to the WASH sector and the displaced persons in the different regions. We have with us a representative of the different municipalities, and we have Mr. Ghassan Tayoun, who is from the municipality of Zgharta Ehden and who will present the experience of the municipality and what are the challenges confronting the communities, what is the current situation, and we can have an overview of the municipality with regard to the now. Floor is yours, Mr. Ghassan. Good morning. I will share my screen. It will be easier.
Est-ce que c'est bon?
Ouais.
Can you see my screen? Yes, we can.
Voilà, en fait, je me suis permis de préparer quelques slides comme support.
I have prepared some slides as a support for our discussion.
Rapidement,
very briefly,
je vais essayer d'aborder avec vous
I will try to tackle
la question du contexte normal
the
et comment la
issues of
situation
the normal context and how the emergency context can be compared to the normal one.
Et j'ai aussi laissé une page ouverte un petit peu, dernière slide, pour discuter de
I have left a space to talk about resilience, given the situation in Lebanon that is continuing to shock us. So, this is the map.
C'est le chef-lieu du Casa de Zgharta.
This is the Gaza of Zgharta Eden. We are at the east of Tripoli.
Rapidement, on fait partie intrinsèque du bassin versant de la Kadisha.
We are part of the watershed of Kadisha and Abu Ali in general. Today,
territoire qui s'étale en altitude entre
the
100
situation
et
is that
1500 mètres
for a territory,
on reçoit aujourd'hui comme avant
for a big territory, we are receiving today a big number of displaced persons.
86 000 habitants.
We have 86,000 inhabitants. We have 16,000 Syrian displaced persons and 12,000 Lebanese displaced persons. With regard to the infrastructure, the situation is not better compared to Lebanon in general.
L'alimentation qualitativement et quantitativement n'est pas suffisante. On est connecté à de l'assainissement collectif à 80%
Connected to the sewage plants at an 80% rate. And we are connected to the Tripoli station with regard to sewage water, and we have 2 stations. However, they are not functioning today. With regard to decentralized cooperation, this is deployed on the level of development projects.
Et de préparation, en fait, comme j'ai dit, de stratégisation.
We also work with the decentralized cooperation on the level of strategies, and we have a cooperation with the ODE department.
Urbaine et de développement territorial sur le bassin versant de Abu Ali, avec en partenariat, bien entendu, la municipalité de Tripoli et
the watershed. For the Abu Ali watershed, we work with the municipality of Tripoli, and currently we have a project with our partners in Pshari, with the Région Chambéry. We have also some small projects with Cette, which is a Mediterranean network.
Parmi ces projets-là, un partenariat.
Among these projects, we have a very important partnership
sur le secteur eau,
which is about the water sector. And thanks to this partnership, we could reach a consensus and a coalition with regard to one of the rivers of Abu Ali. We could also have linkages with the water of North Lebanon, because without partnerships, we cannot go forward in a sustainable manner, because the water establishment remain the main decision maker and main actor with regard to water and sanitation. Within this emergency context, we have seen the influx of displaced persons. We started with the Syrian persons, and then things have started to stabilize, and we have moved to adaptation with regard to the needs. Most notably for the hosting communities, we have launched basic services with the donors, with international NGOs.
Les déplacés syriens se débrouillent avec beaucoup moins de dépenses en termes de quantité d'eau.
Currently, the Syrian displaced are using less quantities of water because of the services, because of what we have provided. But today, we are facing another shock with the Lebanese displaced persons, and we could capitalize on our previous experiences. However, the situation is different.
À savoir la combinaison entre la vie privée, le respect de la vie privée.
There are challenges we are facing with regard to the privacy of the persons who are coming and their traditions.
On ne se comporte pas tous de la même manière face aux événements.
No one react in the same manner to the different events. So,
principalement les écoles publiques déclarées par l'État comme étant des
public schools have been declared by the state as spaces to welcome the displaced persons.
Et ces clusters fonctionnent très très bien parce que bon, ce sont des familles de déplacés qui se sont mises ensemble
we
et
have
qui ont
seen
été
that
surtout validés
families
depuis
have
une
been
grosse
grouped
gestion participative
together
à
in
l'intérieur
order
de chaque
to
cluster
create
lui-même. Il va faciliter la tâche
to
puisqu'on a
create some
bien
aspects to
entendu
work
besoin
together.
de les aider, de les appuyer, mais au moins
So
d'une
we
manière,
need to
en termes de
support
ressources
them,
humaines,
to
on ne va pas
help them.
offrir de
But with
mobiliser des
regard to
personnes
human
plus grandes à
resources,
chaque fois.
we need not
On a
to mobilize a
aussi
big number of
un
persons.
hôtel qui a été transformé en centre
We
d'accueil
have
qui héberge
transformed a
aujourd'hui
hotel
320
in a welcoming
hospitalités.
center.
C'est peut-être en termes de WASH les conditions les plus à l'aise, si j'ose dire, les plus faciles à respecter, puisque les chambres sont
I can
équipées, même
say that with regard to WASH, this is the easiest part
et
of
on a à peu
the
près 7400 personnes
problem
qui
because
sont
the
mobilisées pour
rooms
pouvoir
are
louer leur
equipped
foyer.
with
Je pense que
bathrooms
ces
and water.
personnes-là ayant été déplacées avaient sur elles suffisamment de ressources pour pouvoir louer les appartements.
However, there are also another
Sans que
group
ça
which is about persons who have had enough
veuille dire
resources
qu'ils n'ont
to
pas besoin
rent
de
an
temps en
apartment.
temps d'un appui,
So
surtout en
they
termes
do
de
not
santé,
need support with regard to health or other issues,
d'assistance un petit peu,
or maybe
disons, de santé mentale, de psychologie.
help or psychological support.
En termes de WASH,
With regard to
les besoins,
WASH,
à part de ceux qui sont dans les centres d'hébergement, sont plutôt
the
classiques, dans le
needs
sens où ils sont
for
plus
those who are in shelters are
d'alimenter en leur
classical ones.
des
They
citernes et des
need
réservoirs
water, which
qui
is being
sont disponibles, et après on
provided
trouve d'autres
through
sources pour
trucks.
l'eau chaude
The
sanitaire
other problem is
que bientôt on
the
va devoir adresser
hot
pour répondre
water
aux
and
problèmes
how to heat
majeurs.
the water, and this is a
Donc, qui
major
sont les
problem for
acteurs?
us.
Donc, il y a bien
Who
entendu
are
les
the
services publics,
actors?
des ELN, mais aussi
We have
un
NGOs
bon nombre d'ONG et d'OSC locales, dont trois
and
particulièrement
local
structurées,
CSOs
qui sont capables d'accompagner ce
who are
process avec
capable
des
of
coordonnateurs
supporting the
organisés
process.
depuis toujours. On a les bailleurs
We
de fonds
have
et
a
les
coordinator,
organisations
and
internationales
we have also the donors,
participent aussi, soit
the
financièrement,
international
soit
donors who are participating on the financial
en
side
appui
or by
personnel en termes de ressources humaines.
supporting us
Et
with regard
pour tout ce qui
to
est sécurité
human
et civile,
resources.
il y a l'armée et les forces de sécurité intérieure qui sont aussi
For
mobilisées.
the security,
Donc,
we
quel est
have
le rôle
the
de
army
cette
and
organisation
the
territoriale? En fait,
security
tout au
personnel.
début, on s'est mobilisé en coordination, en
At
coordinateur
the
généraux.
start, we
Et en
have
fait,
been mobilized as
les OSC locales,
coordinators,
les trois
and
parmi
the
les
local
plus impliqués
CSOs, the most
dans l'action
involved ones in the action,
d'accueil ont été en fait des initiatrices, ont pris l'initiative de
have
s'occuper de la
taken the initiative
dispatching, c'est-à-dire avec
of
on a
being in
accueilli
charge of
les gens qui
dispatching,
venaient des fois tout seuls comme ça spontanément,
because sometimes
mais essayait de les
there
orienter
were people
selon
who were
leurs
coming
besoins,
separately,
les
and
affinités en fait de tout un chacun.
we needed
Et
to see what are the how to
pour ce qui
harmonize
est de
their
l'approvisionnement
arrival.
en eau, nous sommes aidés par la défense civile puisqu'ils
So
ont
for water
complètement
provision,
utilisé
the
heureusement
civil defense is helping us.
peu, mais ça n'a pas été catastrophique cette année.
We have
Donc,
had major
les amis de la défense civile
wildfires. It wasn't easy this year,
de
and
Turquie, en fait, sont aujourd'hui utilisés avec une partie de la flotte
the trucks for water have been extensively used
des centres d'hébergement et
in order to feed the hosting centers with water.
en défaillance, les citernes privées, ou surtout dans le cadre des clusters. Donc, la page blanche que j'ai voulu, quand je vous ai parlé, n'est pas tout à fait blanche.
The blank space I wanted to leave is not really blank. I think that there are lots of points that have been tackled by Jérémy Guérin and by several of the speakers. This issue of the timing and the intervention compared to the classical intervention of municipalities.
De vision interne.
This is a matter of internal opinion, internal strategy or vision. There are lots of municipalities in Lebanon who are trying to implement strategies and plan of actions in order to go in parallel on the three major pillars of this strategy. And because we are always facing emergencies, it is hard for us today to mitigate our actions and to continue to think, because we need to act in emergency situations. We have been very efficient during the pandemic, so we have had lots of resources and
lâché sur les épaules par notre cher gouvernement central.
So today we have to shoulder lots of responsibilities. The NGOs are here, and the municipality of Zgarda, which has been very active up until now with regard to actors, with regard to its role, has devised a strategy for a rapid intervention. However, facing the current crisis today, we couldn't feel that the mobilization by the ERDM was impactful, most notably at the start.
Plutôt que une activité de soutien réel pour pallier aux besoins.
We couldn't see a real supportive action.
Les ressources financières,
as for the financial resources, I will not be long on this matter, but I will go back to what Yaqub from the UNICEF has said. He has mentioned that the UNICEF has only 20% of the necessary funds in order to bridge the gaps. He mentioned that the gaps are about 80%, and the funding is really, and the lack of funding is really important.
Voilà, je pose une question. En fait, c'est pas une question. Je cite malheureusement encore une fois Edgar Morin.
Here I will go back to Edgar Morin, who has said that as long as we are spending what we have for the emergency, we cannot think about the other aspects of emergency.
Qu'on fait, comment dire, sous la pression et sous le feu de l'action.
Today, we can talk about the emergency because of the situation we are facing. Thank you for the time you have given me, and I'm here for any question. Thank you, Ghassan, and thank you for this presentation and for the question you have raised at the end. This will pave the way for the discussion. And now I would like to ask if you have any comment, if you have any question that you'd like to raise following the presentation of Mr. Ghassan. Sophie.
Oui, bonjour.
Good morning.
Donc, je suis Sophie Alary, je suis coordinatrice.
Sophie Alary, I am the coordinator of the Kadisha Durable program, as Ghassan has said, which spans over the two territory of Bshari and Zgharta, and we work with the Chambéry and the Department of Aude.
L'articulation avec le niveau national, mais
I would like to go into details for the national level.
Moi, ce que j'observe dans le Casa de
I can see in the Casa of Zgharta since a few weeks, because there is not only the municipality of Zgharta and Eden who have welcomed the displaced persons, but all the municipalities have done this. Everything is being done locally with pS-Eau. We are talking about the grouping of municipalities. There is no cells for the emergency. I am in Lebanon since a few months, and I'm following up with what has happened during the past years. But what is the link between the emergency and the development? I can say that there are those clusters that are supporting the emergency cells and who are working on long-term projects since years. I am asking myself that today we do not have any representative from the state, representative from the Ministry of Water and Energy. It would have been good to have a representative with us or a representative from national institutions. Anyway,
cette cellule de gestion des risques, les clusters qui travaillent sur les différents sujets, dont l'eau.
No coordination between the cell and other actors who are working with the water sector. There are no long-term projects, and I cannot see how things will continue during the upcoming weeks and months. And I think that LEWAP has a role to play right now.
J'essaie de comprendre, c'est relativement complexe à ce stade.
It's really difficult right now to understand what is being done.
Hassan, tu peux apporter quelques éléments et peut-être Jasmine aussi pour rebondir.
Hassan, maybe you can bring in some answer. Thank you for mentioning a very important point.
Ça ne m'échappe pas, mais je ne l'ai pas mentionné. Effectivement, les chiffres que j'ai présentés, ça ne concerne pas uniquement
The figures I have presented is about the whole Gaza and not only Ehden and Zgharta.
Élu de Zgharta Ehden, et pardonnez-moi si j'ai passé le mauvais message. Effectivement, il y a beaucoup de municipalités.
In fact, there are lots of municipalities such as the municipality of Aito and other municipalities who are trying to intervene in order to ensure a decent hosting. With regard to the question about the relation with the centralized state, I think, and we know it very well, that there is a kind of behavior or defending the prerogatives of the centralized government.
Vous n'avez rien à faire dans ce secteur, c'est la prérogative de tel ou tel ministère.
Whenever we try to intervene, they say that you do not have to do so because this is the prerogative of a certain ministry.
Mais je crains qu'il n'y ait pas eu
I am afraid
à disposition en fait, la mise de moyens nécessaires à leur disposition par l'étage supérieur qui est le gouvernement dans son entier. Donc on n'est pas là pour discuter de
things
ça.
are not yet sorted out. However, we are not here to discuss all this.
Il faut aussi soulever, et moi je souhaiterais
But
là,
within this context,
un peu en tant que Libanais,
we need
on aime beaucoup, en fait, on est très
to say that we as Lebanese,
partants pour répondre aux urgences. Mais une fois l'urgence
we can
passée,
answer the emergency situations, but once the emergency situations, we think that such a situation will not come back.
Jusqu'à présent,
Since the Syrian displaced crisis, we couldn't have we couldn't see any respite.
En fait, les buts déclarés au moins de ce fameux DRM qui a été créé par un financement étranger.
However,
avec un bureau central.
We can't see up until now what is the objective of the DNR or DRM that has been established. However, there is a
très longue haleine. Et donc,
a work
aujourd'hui,
of preparation
en anticipation de cette crise, on a
in
fait ce qu'il faut pour
anticipation
appeler
of
les
this
responsables de
crisis.
DRM,
We
le
have
service de TASA, et on les
communicated
avait
with the
priés, eux, de ne
DRM
pas encore bouger, pas activer le comité de
officials,
crise avant
and
d'avoir
we have asked them
les
to
instructions de l'État. Donc maintenant, les
activate
choses sont un peu mises en place, un peu ad hoc,
things.
mais je
So
pense qu'on est dans
I
une
think
dynamique
that
de
things are ready,
coopération
but we
et
are
de
in a dynamic
collaboration
of
ensemble.
cooperation and
Mais il y a
collaboration with
effectivement un
these
énorme travail à
persons.
faire aujourd'hui et demain pour inscrire de la vraie résilience dans nos planifications.
However, I think that we need to have real resilience within plans
Merci
and
Hassan
within strategies.
pour la réponse. Sophie, je suis désolée, mais ma connexion est un peu coupée. J'ai pas très bien entendu la question que tu directement à l'Europe.
Apologies, I had a problem of connection, so I didn't really get the entire
En fait,
question.
je ne sais pas si c'est à ce stade une question, en tout cas c'est une réflexion et encore
In
une fois, ça
fact,
va
it
au-delà
was
de
more a
l'intervention de
reflection
Ghassan,
and not a
qu'a levé
question, and
Matin.
it goes
C'est
beyond the intervention of Ghassan.
effectivement le sujet, c'est pas l'urgence. Enfin,
The
tu as raison,
topic, in
Hassan,
fact, is not the
au travail,
emergency,
c'est
and you
qu'aujourd'hui,
are completely
avec gérer la
right,
crise,
because
on va
what
encore
is
durer,
done
c'est
today
pas fini.
in order to manage
La
the crisis, and
réflexion,
this is something that will require
c'est
time.
trop tôt, j'en sais
In
rien. C'est
fact,
plutôt
this
des
is
articulations
more
sur
an
l'après.
idea
Essentiellement,
regarding the
aujourd'hui, dans la gestion
post-crisis, namely with regards to the
réflexion
emergency management, the funds
des ONG,
management,
il y
the
a une ONG qui n'était pas là
NGOs
avant.
funds,
Enfin,
or
voilà,
the NGOs who will
qui va se
come
faire dans les mois qui viennent.
newly,
Et le raccrochement, enfin, l'après. À un moment donné,
and you know, this
cette situation
link with the
d'urgence va se transformer
post
en autre chose.
period, because this
Et c'est
emergency will transform
comment
into
on travaille
something
sur
else afterwards.
l'articulation.
So
Encore une
how
fois,
are we going to work on
peut-être que
all
moi,
these
je suis
details?
naïve. Je
I'm
mesure bien la difficulté, la
I'm trying
complexité de
to
tout ça.
measure,
Mais
of course, the complexity of all what you're doing.
Bon, dans le cadre, ouais, dans le cadre du
Jasmine
secteur de
answers.
l'eau,
In
dans le ministère
With
de
regards to the water
l'Environnement, on a
sector,
déjà
the Ministry of
développé
Energy and Water has
ou
already
reconduit
developed
la stratégie d'ici jusqu'à
a new
2030.
strategy,
Mais
a strategy,
malheureusement,
you
cette
know,
stratégie, ça
that
ne
goes till
comprenait pas
2035. But
bon, la
unfortunately, this is a
situation
strategy that
actuelle
does not
dans laquelle,
involve
bon,
the
pour le
current
moment,
situation
ce
or
fait
the
le
current
ministère
war.
de l'Envie,
So
de
what
l'Eau
the
et
Ministry of
c'est en
Water and
coordination
Energy is
avec le
doing
WASH
now
cluster
is in
pour
coordination with the WASH
intervenir et
cluster
supporter
to
les personnes
intervene
déplacées
and to support the
vivant dans certaines
IDPs
régions. Mais comme a déjà mentionné
in
Yacoub,
different regions.
dans
But as
certaines
we've
régions du
already
sud, il
said,
n'était pas
we
assez
have in
difficile
some areas
de
in the south
fonctionner
and
les
the Bekaa, it's
établissements
very
de l'eau.
difficult to work,
En tout
and it's very
cas,
difficult
nous,
also to
c'était l'idée
manage the
aussi
water
d'avoir
establishment. So
Suzy
anyway, the
Houaï
idea
avec
was
nous du
to
ministère ce
have
matin
with us Suzy
pour en
Houaïek from
donner
the
un peu
ministry, who
une
could have
grande
given
sur le
us,
contexte du
you
besoin
know,
qui
an
n'était
overview
pas
of the context, but
participé. Donc,
unfortunately, she was not able to join us.
ce que nous connaissons de
So what we
mécanisme des
know
choses qui se
about
passent,
the mechanism
ce sont les dernières
today
informations qu'on
is
a,
that
mais
what I already
on
gave
compte
you,
tester
and
les
this is the
actions
entire information that we have now with regards to all the details.
ouais.
We wished we had her with
En
us to
tant que
talk
LEWAP,
about all these
on
issues.
n'a
But
pas de
for us,
réponse directe
we
sur
as
ce qui
LEWAP,
est
we do not have, you know, an answer
ou bien le ministère.
regarding what's being done through the ministry.
En fait, le rôle de l'IWAP, ça va être
Maybe
vraiment
the
de cloisonner
LEWAP
différentes
role will
acteurs, différents
be, you
niveaux,
know,
faire circuler
to,
les informations entre
you know, mainstream the
que ce soit le
information and to
ministère, la
link
Société
between the
Civile, la
different
recherche,
stakeholders, the
CDNG, etc.
ministry, the researchers, the
En particulier
NGOs,
via la
etc.
newsletter que
And
Jasmine
namely
est en train
through,
de
you know, the
produire.
newsletter that Jasmine is producing on a, you know, seasonal basis every 3 week month.
Monsieur Brintet, je
ouais.
vois que vous avez une question.
Any
Oui,
questions?
merci Mélodie, merci beaucoup
Mr.
Monsieur
Brente,
Tayoun.
yes,
Donc
thank you
Damien
very
Brintet,
much, and
je
thank
suis
you,
au
Mr.
ministère des Affaires
Tayoun.
étrangères.
I am Damien Brente. I come from
Je
the
suis en
Ministry
charge
of
du Liban,
Foreign
puis de la
Affairs, so
délégation
I
aux
am
collectivités
the
territoriales
person
et la
responsible
Société
for
Civile.
the
Donc
Lebanese, the coordination
je
with Lebanon
comprends
and
là,
the
c'est
different
un
municipalities.
fait que
I
les
understand
besoins
totally that
financiers
the financial needs are
et
really
humains sont
huge,
énormes aujourd'hui.
namely
Je
also
propose
the
de passer
humanitarian ones, and
sur
they are
les
the
collectivités
ones
territoriales que
that
vous représentez ici, donc
the
qui
Lebanese municipalities are taking care
répondent
of,
à la
and
coordination générale, à
so with
l'accueil,
regards to
etc.
the general
Donc moi j'aurais
coordination,
une question un peu
welcome,
pragmatique.
etc. I know. Now I have
Est-ce que vous
a
pourriez
pragmatic question. Can you tell me,
nous donner quelques pistes
or can you give us some
de réflexion
ideas
pour répondre
for
en
reflection
fait à ces défis. Alors, comment est-ce qu'on peut
regarding these challenges? So can we really, or how can we really work on strengthening the capacities of your municipality? So this is my main question. I had also another question regarding the meaning of DRM. Can you please tell me what is the DRM? I didn't really understand it. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Brante. Mr. Tayoun answers DRM is disaster risk management. So this this is the unit that is working on, managing all the risks, whether the disasters are, natural ones or man-made ones. Now, to answer your question or to answer your suggestion, I do not know, the decentralized cooperation projects that we already launched, 70% of our activities and collaboration with other, stakeholders are with France, and all these types of collaborations are done by people who are more, friends, Lebanese friends than we are. And of course, this is something that we've already witnessed with France since very long ago. Anyway, for us to be really very efficient in our work, whether with, the assistance or any help at the decentralized level, we need to be very innovative and to always dare to give a concrete component, namely amongst the soft components, i.e. planning, training, and others. We have a wonderful example. It's related to a project that we had with the Eau department regarding water. We've worked a lot together and we had a lot of technical support by the department services. This allowed us to work on some diagnosis and to reach some agreements amongst each other, namely for the area of Rash'in. And this allowed us also to establish a charter that we are trying to respect. But also, I need to say that a part of the funding that was given by the department was to equip the North Lebanon antenna. And since, Zgharta is the headquarters of the entire CASA, we needed to be knowledgeable of all the resources, and we needed to have this handheld measuring tool. This allows us to know what is the flow distance at the quality and the quantity level. And because these are issues that we do not know how to manage well. Consequently, these are small parts of the investment, the start kit, that was really wonderfully invested to help the water establishment through this partnership with Zgharta and CD11 for us to really anticipate the needs and to establish a better plan for emergency response. So my answer, I hope, was clear. So maybe if you could help us to include in our budget a bigger part that would be consecrated to the tools the citizens need to see all these issues and to be involved and informed about all these information. We know that there were some instructions regarding the remains of some specific projects that could be reoriented towards
humanitaire,
support at the humanitarian level.
Voilà, mais aussi santé
but
publique et éducation.
also public health and education. One of these three axes. I can confirm this. Yes, because so of course I do not work with the DCT, so it's the same organ, but or the same body that has changed names. So the issue is that we are ready to review the different projects that we have, whether
pour mettre sur pied de nouveaux
to
projets.
establish new projects or to reorient all these funds. Yes, this is the main message that we can pass here thanks to your intervention. Hassan, I would like to add one small issue, if you allow me, to you and to all the audience. I do not know whether you're aware, we have 3 help centers that were managed by the municipality and they were directly bombed. We have 3 heads of municipalities who died with tens of council members, and they were people working on assisting at the humanitarian level. So this is why we really pay tribute to them, and we wanted us as municipalities to work on some lobbying and to ask to stop and avoid any type of bombing against municipalities, and consequently the belligerents need to leave municipalities to their jobs, to their missions, i.e. managing all these citizens' issues, namely the IDPs. Thank you. So this was a kind of moral support. If the message is passed, this would be great. Thank you. Thank you very much. And this is well noted. You're, amongst the frontliners, and you're, at high risk. Thank you.
Merci, Hassan.
Thank you, Hassan. Thank you, Monsieur Damien.
Avant qu'on commence par la dernière présentation,
before giving the floor to the last speaker, do we have any other questions that we would like to ask to Mr. Tayoun?
Oui, si c'est possible.
Yes, if you allow me. This is Iman.
Monsieur Hassan, vous êtes dans la municipalité.
Monsieur Tayoun, you are at the municipality, and when the Foundation Abdel Ali was working under this crisis, we've worked a lot with Mr. Krayem, who was the head of the water establishment in the north, and he always told us that there are lots of partnerships, lots of projects. And now, listening to you, I do not see all these projects and partnerships. I see that these projects did not really have the effect that was desired. Second, you have lots of deputies, MPs in the north. Can they do any pressure? Can they exert any pressure? Because I think that they can exert some pressure on the Council of Ministers, namely the Ministry of Water and Energy. Can they do so in order for things to advance now, maybe pre, post, and during the crisis? Thank you. Can I answer? Yes, of course.
Effectivement, du temps de Monsieur Krayem.
In fact, with Mr. Krayem, that to whom we have a huge esteem. In fact, the work was really efficient. In fact, Mr. Krayem supported by the stakeholders and by the French party, has established a system for the water treatment in the area of Al Harim in Bsharri. And this helped transform the entire approach of the ministry with regards to the water, to the wastewater treatment next to Kadisha and in the Kada of Pshari has made it, more efficient because more than half of the water plant was based on the nature-based solutions and thus less costs, and the IFD had provided funds in the context of the Lebanese funding for these projects, and the aim was to establish sanitation strategies. Unfortunately, this did not happen because the AFD, the French Agency for Development, had to withdraw since there was no possibility for the state to expropriate all the lands that were necessary for the project. But this does not mean that Mr. Krayem's action was not heard nor successful. This is on the one hand. On the other hand, it's not an issue of exerting pressure on the government because the government is not able to answer these needs, whether through the government nor through its NGOs. I really pay tribute to you resorting to democracy because we try all to respect our democracy, whether at the local or national level. But the problem is that in a state that unfortunately is currently dysfunctional, and this dysfunction does not start now, it was pre-crisis. So in such a state, it's very difficult to do so, but I can tell you that we will go on with our struggle for the post-crisis to be better and for us to be better prepared for the new crisis that will occur and unfold. Thank you very much, and I can tell you that for us, all Lebanese and all those who are involved in the sector have the name of Abdel Al at a really high level, because this organization is one of the pioneers in the level at the environmental level, namely at the water level. Thank you. Thank you, Ghassan.
Monsieur Damien, tu es à la main levée.
Mr. Damien, do you still want to take the floor, or is this icon old? It's an old one. I forgot to remove it. No problem. Okay, let us now pass to the last intervention with Mrs. Aline Malouf, and this is related to the situation and the needs of the displaced. So Mrs. Malouf will be talking about the REACH initiative and association that has worked on this study and the results of the questionnaires and the surveys that were done with the displaced. In the collective places. Ghassan, can you please stop sharing? You need to stop share for her to start sharing her own presentation. Thank you. Aline, you have the floor.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me and can you see my screen?
I can hear you, yes. Okay, yes, I can see your screen now.
Yes. So, hello, this is Aline from Impact Reach. Yeah, so as mentioned, I will be briefing you on impact mission and what impact does globally and particularly in Lebanon. And then we were gonna talk about the findings from the displacement impact and rapid needs assessments, DIRNA, that was launched in areas of arrival, particularly for IDPs out of collective sites. So for Impact is a sister organization of Acted, and it is a Geneva-based NGO and the largest independent data provider for contexts in crisis. With a goal to support a range of stakeholders in making better, more informed decisions in the humanitarian stabilization and development settings by answering the three most important questions that determine humanitarian planning and prioritization in an evidence-based manner, that are: what are the types of needs, what is the severity and magnitude of needs, and how are the needs changing over time, in line with REACH's vision that REACH will enable crisis-affected populations to receive the assistance they need, when they need it, and in the way they need it. So in Lebanon, REACH's primary project was the MSNA, or the multi-sectoral needs assessment, that is done on the household level and that asks questions about barriers and access to all services that we might think of in different sectors. So for the year 2024, when we were launching this year's MSNA, we were not able to launch it in the light of the current crisis, and given that access to certain areas has been impacted, and changes to sampling because of the displacements. That's why REACH, in order to support the planning, launched the displacement impact and the rapid needs assessments in areas of arrival. And since limited information is known on how the access to certain services changed for the host communities after the displacement, and about the level of access to displaced out of collective shelters, REACH launched this with sampling of IDPs out of collective sites by using the IOM DTM. Now, talking about the objectives, so as I mentioned, the general objective is to give an overview on the cadastre level of how the displacement and the conflict affects access to essential services for the hosts, and to give an idea about the services that are available or not available to the IDPs out of collective sites, as well as to inform about the primary needs of those of the hosts and of the IDPs out of collective sites. Again, since household level assessments cannot be done in such contexts, we should think about a more rapid needs assessment that is more of a KII based, not on a household level. So this is the methodology of DIRNA. So DIRNA uses the KIIs as a primary method for data collection to ensure we get information on both hosts and IDPs out of collective sites. The individuals we target, or the KIs, should be well informed about the situation of both groups in the communities of interviews. So primarily KIs were chosen from hosts, local council members, mukhtars, municipalities, health staff, and educators or NGO workers to respond on questions about the majority of hosting households, and from focal points or individuals from the IDPs community to answer questions related to IDPs out of collective sites. The sampling was done with at least 4 KIIs, with a maximum of 12 KIIs per cadastre, or per village, or per city, chosen based on the total number of out of collective sites IDPs in the cadastres from the IOM DTM data. Again, since this is not done at the individual or the household level, findings are indicative only. They cannot be extrapolated for the whole population. So when we say 2/3 of the KIs or 60% of the KIs, that does not mean that 60% of population doesn't have access to a certain service. The data is on the settlement level and not on the household level. And always we say KI reporters or in X% of the cadasters and not the whole settlement reported or X% of households do not have this. The main objective then of the DIRNA is to provide up-to-date multi-sectoral data on humanitarian needs, particularly in areas of arrival, to enable monitoring of change in needs and targeting of response, and to support the prioritization or reprioritization of response when we launch many phases of the DIRNA. Currently, what we've done is we launched 2 phases. The first phase was a pilot being in Beirut Governorate, and the second was launched in Mount Lebanon Governorate. So for Beirut, we will able to assess all the cadasters. There are 12 cadasters, but for Mount Lebanon, it was a bit harder to give this rapid response in like 10 days with the findings and the output available. So what we did is we excluded all cadasters with with a number of IDPs less than the mean in the governorate. So for example, for Mount Lebanon, the mean was 758 IDPs. So all cadasters with less than 758 IDPs were excluded. So we got around 75 cadasters to assess. Then we prioritized these 75 cadasters into categories. So priority 1 would be the percentage of IDPs out of collective sites is more than 80% of the whole IDPs. Priority 2 would be 50 to less than 80%. And priority 3 would be less than 50%. And thanks to the IOM, we were able to complete our targets in all 3 priorities. So in all 75 cadasters and covering 82% of out collective sites IDPs. For the timeline, for Beirut, we were able to collect data in 2 days from 65 KIIs, and we did the data cleaning and analysis and findings in like 3 days too. For Mount Lebanon, we started data collection on the 4th and we ended it on the 13th with 397 KIIs from different cadasters, and we did finalize the data cleaning and analysis on the 18th of November, and we are working now on the outputs. So for key findings for Beirut, for domestic water, I'm surely there are many more indicators, but now we're focusing more on water. But there are many more indicators that you can look at from like food security, health, and other sectors. But now we will focus on water mainly. So for host community findings in Beirut, for domestic water in 50%, so that would be 6 out of 11 cadasters in Beirut, there was a reported decline in access to domestic water for most of the hosting households, where the KIs reported the most 3 barriers as no barriers in 40% of the cadasters, new arrivals putting additional stress on water supplies in 33% of cadasters, and crowded water points as a barrier in 33% also of cadasters. For drinking water, in 40% of the assessed cadasters, there was a decline reported in access to drinking water for the hosting community, with the top 3 barriers being no barriers, newly arrivals, putting stress on water supply, and that the hosting community cannot afford to buy water. For IDP's findings, for drinking water, in 27% of the assessed cadasters, KIs reported that less than 50% of IDPs out of collective sites have access to drinking water since their arrivals, with most barriers being related to the affordability of water, and that the available water to the out of collective sites at IDPs is not potable. For priority needs, Food support, cash assistance, wash support, and livelihood support were mostly reported as priority needs for IDPs out of collective sites in Beirut. As of Mount Lebanon findings for the host community, also in 43% of the assessed cadasters, of the 75 assessed cadasters, there was reported a decline in access to domestic water, with the barriers being new arrivals putting stress on water and cannot afford to buy water. For drinking water, there was a decline in 31% of the cadasters, with the barriers being new arrivals putting stress on water supply and crowded water points as main barriers to drinking water. As for waste management, we added this question because it was requested by different sectors. So to assess the change in waste management services in the cadasters that we assess. So the findings say that in 43% of cadasters, there was a reported decline in access to waste management services for the hosting households. The main barriers being increased waste due to displacement and the accumulation of uncollected waste. As for priority needs in Mount Lebanon for the host community, they were primarily food support, health support, cash assistance, and livelihood support. For the out of collective sites IDP findings in Mount Lebanon, in 11% of cadasters, KIs reported that less than 50% of IDPs out of collective site has access to drinking water since their arrival, with the barriers being cannot afford to buy water and the available water not potable. With the priority needs reported for the out of collective sites IDPs also being food support, cash assistance, health support, and livelihood support. So in general, what we look at is that IDPs mainly report about the quality of water as a barrier and about the affordability of water, while host communities' barriers are related to the additional stress put by the displaced on the availability of water. For next steps, we are launching this in North and Akkar next month, early next month, and we will have the findings also before Christmas vacation. I will also drop you the findings fact sheet and the dashboard for Beirut. However, for Mount Lebanon, they are not available yet. As I mentioned, they are available. They will be available in the next week. Thank you, and let me know if you have questions, please.
Thank you, Aline, for the presentation. Yes, please, if you can share with us the links on the chat. And also we will be sharing them in the upcoming newsletter in December. So we will have the compilation from Beirut, Mount Lebanon, and hopefully, I'm not sure if the North and Akkar area results will be out by then. Ok. Bon, maintenant, j'ouvre la parole aux personnes si
I
quelqu'un a
will
une
give
question
the floor
directement.
to the participants if you have any question you'd like to raise.
Je pense peut-être que ça serait plus facile aux acteurs
I think that
présents
it would
aujourd'hui de
be
voir sur le
easier for
lien
actors who are
les
present
résultats
today to
et
see
dans
the
la
results on
définition
the
de
links
cette série.
and
Je
to
laisse
think
maintenant la
about
parole à
them. I will
Mélodie
give
si on
the
n'a
floor
pas
now to
d'autres
Melody
questions
if we do not have
d'intervention
any
de
other
votre part.
questions or interventions you'd
Merci
like.
Jasmine. Oui,
Thank you,
c'était
Jasmine.
dense comme présentation de ces
It was
résultats.
very
Vous avez pu
dense
collecter
with
très
regard to the
rapidement, donc c'est
presentation. Those
remarquable.
are results you have
J'étais
collected
connectée sur la
very
version
quickly.
française.
I
Vous
was
êtes
on
exprimé aussi
the
très rapidement,
French
surtout pour
version.
l'interprétariat et puis globalement pour l'interprétariat de toute la
And
session.
thank
Merci
you
beaucoup
for
aux
the
interprètes.
interpretation of the whole session
Je
and
voulais
this
peut-être
part
réouvrir
especially.
un petit peu,
I
il nous
would
reste un petit
like
peu de temps, mais je
to
vois qu'il y a beaucoup de gens qui se sont déjà déconnectés. Je sais que 3 heures, c'est toujours un petit peu long. Mais
I
pour
would
ceux qui
like,
le souhaitent toujours,
and for those who would
effectivement,
like
poser des questions, mais aussi
to raise
partager peut-être
questions, to
des
ask
éléments de
some
projet, notamment
questions,
certains acteurs
to
de
share some
coopération,
new elements of your projects
peut-être des
from
idées, des
the
perceptions qui
cooperation
ont amené
actors, maybe
ces
opinions,
différents
reflections
partages
who have led you
de
to
différentes,
share these
de
different
différentes
perspectives,
perspectives en fait de la façon dont se structure la
with
réponse à l'urgence au
regard
Liban dans le
to
secteur
the
WASH.
structuring of the
Donc
emergency
voilà, si
response
quelqu'un
in Lebanon
en
within
acteur de
the WASH
coopération
sector.
notamment souhaite,
If
souhaite prendre la
any
parole
of
pour
the
rebondir sur
cooperation
l'ensemble de ces
actors would
éléments,
like
je vous en
to
prie.
take the floor with regard to these elements, please do so.
Si c'est possible, je peux poser une question.
Oui.
Is it possible to ask a question?
J'ai compris du UNICEF.
I
Il m'avait
have
dit
understood
le
from
fond,
UNICEF.
On n'entend pas
ensuite,
bien.
c'est donc. Genre, le UNICEF a dit qu'il n'avait pas assez de fonds
UNICEF
pour faire
has
le
said that
projet.
they do not have enough
C'est bien
funds
ça?
to carry out projects.
Oui, c'est ce qu'on
Right?
a entendu effectivement
Yes,
sur la première
that's
présentation.
what we have
Et
listened in the first
on peut
presentation.
savoir pourquoi ils n'ont pas les fonds?
Ils ne sont
Why
plus
do
connectés.
they not have funds?
Yacoub a annoncé
Melody, they are
qu'il
not
était présent qu'en première
connected
partie.
anymore. They were here in
D'accord.
the first part of the presentation. Thank you.
Donc, est-ce que d'autres personnes souhaitent prendre la parole pour partager une expérience ou une perception par rapport
Who would
à
like to take the floor in
ces
order
éléments
to
qui ont été
share
présentés?
any perspectives with regard to the elements that were
Dans ce cas, je voulais rebondir
presented?
sur un point qui a été mentionné par Marie-Laure
Otherwise,
Rampey,
I
effectivement
would
la
like
question qui se pose en ce
to
moment en
come
matière
back
de
to
coopération
a certain
décentralisée,
point with regard
parce que
to the
la façon dont les
decentralized
projets
cooperation
peuvent se poursuivre
and
ou se
how you can
réorienter.
continue
Ça
your
dépend
projects, be
de,
it by
des
reorienting
idées qui
them
peuvent émerger avec vos
or
partenaires, mais aussi des
maybe by
possibilités
having ideas
de
with your
cofinancement, de
partners
flexibilité des
and to
cofinancements.
have a
Donc,
possibility
la
of
Société Civile a
co-funding
cette flexibilité.
if you have
Donc,
this
on a aussi
flexibility.
l'AFD qui est cofinanceur
We
de
have
coopération.
also the AFD that
J'ai pas
can
d'informations
co-finance.
sur leur
qui est moins flexible a priori.
voilà. Mais en tout cas, je voulais préciser que ce n'est pas le cas des agences de l'eau,
I wanted to underline that this wasn't the
ça
case
fait pas
of
partie de leur
water
mandat
agencies. This is not within
de
their
financer des
mandate
actions de réponse à
to
l'urgence, si ce n'est
finance and to fund
des urgences liées
emergency
à
responses.
des aléas climatiques et naturels. Voilà.
I think they can do this for
Donc
natural
effectivement, c'était
catastrophes.
l'une des idées, l'un des objectifs de
So
ce
one
webinaire.
of the objectives
Dans ce
of this
contexte-là, en
webinar
particulier les
was
6 collectivités territoriales françaises impliquées en coopération
in this
décentralisée.
sense
Dans ce
with regard
contexte-là,
to the
vous avez
decentralized
certainement,
cooperation in
on l'a
this
bien compris,
context, and we have understood it well.
des envies, des souhaits de
So
contribuer
you
financièrement,
would like
techniquement.
to
Ce
have
qu'on
some
souhaitait ici, c'était
financial
vous
and
dresser
technical
un panorama de ce qui se
and
passe
you
localement au
have
Liban, à
presented
différents
a
niveaux,
panorama of what is
pour
happening in
structurer
Lebanon, and that
les
in
réponses
order
à
to
à
structure
cette
the
situation
responses with regard to
d'urgence et de guerre,
this
en
emergency
particulier
and war
dans le
situation,
secteur
in
WASH.
particular
Donc
in
vous
the war
avez
sector.
les ONG
So
qui au Liban
there are the
sont présentes
NGOs
depuis longtemps
who are
maintenant,
present in Lebanon since
qui
a
placent.
long time
Jérémy
ago.
a précisé un petit peu
And Jeremy has
les modalités
underlined
d'intervention des
the
acteurs
modalities of
urgentistes.
intervention of the
Mais c'est vrai qu'au
emergency
Liban, il y a
actors, but it is true in
cette
Lebanon
pérennité de la présence
there is this
des grandes ONG.
sustainability
On l'a
of
vu au
the
travers
presence of the
du
big
positionnement
NGOs
d'Acted,
and
qui fait
the
que
work
voilà, les
of
ONG
actors
ont déjà souvent un
that
petit peu cette
makes
culture à cheval entre l'urgence et le développement. En tout cas,
NGOs
elles placent ce rôle des
have this
ONG
culture
qui sont
between the
coordonnées
development and the
par le
emergency
cluster
response.
WASH.
So
Il y
also
a les
there
rôles
are the
des
coordination
municipalités,
that
des
is being
organisations de
done
la
by
société
WASH
civile
and also
et
there is
toujours
the
des
role of
institutions
the
locales, les
NGOs,
institutions
the
libanaises,
CSOs, and
nationales
the
et
Lebanese national
déconcentrées, le
institutions,
ministère de l'énergie et de l'eau et les établissements d'eau,
especially the
qui
decentralized
sont membres du
institutions
cluster WASH et qui
and
sont
the
dans ce
Ministry
besoin
of
de
Water and
coordination
Energy, which
de
are
façon
members
transversale. Mais il y a
of
différents
the
niveaux
of the WASH
de
cluster.
réponse aux besoins
Also,
WASH
we
des
have
populations
seen the
déplacées.
different
Et c'est
responses with
intéressant en tant
regard to WASH
qu'acteur de
and the
coopération
and the
décentralisée que vous
ITPs.
ayez cette vision un petit peu globale. Donc il y a
So this is
différents
the
contacts qui
global
sont
overview.
partagés, qui sont déjà
The
partagés dans le chat.
contacts will
Mais
be
je vois que les
shared in
PSO
the
sont toujours
chat,
disponibles pour faciliter des
and the
mises en lien
websites
si
and
nécessaire dans les situations
mails
d'urgence.
are available in order
Voilà,
to
pour
facilitate
conclure,
the sharing of
sauf
knowledge
si quelques
and
personnes souhaitent rebondir
information.
et apporter quelques éléments complémentaires.
So in conclusion, is there someone or somebody who would like to add any additional comment?
Non, très bien. Eh bien, si personne souhaite ajouter quelque chose,
If you'd like to add
on va
anything
conclure
else,
là-dessus. Donc, les présentations
please do. Otherwise, we will conclude
partagées.
this session and we will
Applaudissements.
share the presentations.
Ah oui, donc Claire Hart de la métropole de Montpellier, peut-être que vous souhaitiez intervenir. Qui nous
Maybe
remercie de
Claire Hart
du
would
webinaire,
like
mais
to
qui
take
ne
the
peut pas
floor.
intervenir,
No,
je pense
she's
qu'elle a des points, désolée. Donc, si personne d'autre ne
thanking
souhaite
us for this
ajouter
webinar.
un mot de conclusion,
So,
on va
if
conclure
anyone
là-dessus.
would like
Et
to
n'hésitez
add
pas à
anything,
rebondir sur ces échanges de façon bilatérale.
otherwise,
comme vous
we
avez
will
souhaité les différents contacts que vous
conclude
avez
our
directement.
webinar and we will share our contacts.
Merci à tous.
Thank you all. Thank you for your presence.
Merci à tous.
À très bientôt.
Merci, au revoir.
Bientôt.
Au revoir.
Merci, au revoir.
Au revoir.
Merci.
Merci, au revoir.